Get live here in a sec. Get situated, and then we'll get it. We will get going. All right. All right. So we are live on Instagram and Facebook. All right. We'll get into it. Just going to give a minute or two, just to give a little time for some people to get in, and then we will get going. All right. So again, we're live on Instagram and Facebook. So infernal blessings to everybody on Instagram. Again, if I don't see your questions, you could always come over to the YouTube, Primordial Chaos on YouTube. We are live on YouTube simultaneously because sometimes it's just hard to watch both and get to all the questions. All right. So we're going to give it a minute, about another minute or two. Just make a couple of quick announcements, then I'll kind of get into what I wanted to get into. Infernal blessings to Duma. Brother Eddie Machete. What's going on? DJ Eddie Machete. All right, so we're just going to give it a minute. And then we will get it going. So I hope everybody's staying busy. Hope everybody's staying active, productive. It's one thing to be active, but it's another thing to be productive. Two different things. All right. So hopefully everybody's staying on point as we are in the midst of a great transition. We'll talk a little bit about that today. I'm going to get into some techniques. We should really be focused on, again, health, overall well-being, financial prosperity, all things that are in the spectrum that are being affected. So it's very easy for us as magicians and adepts at this point to know where our focus and direction should be on. If people don't know what they should be doing now, then I don't think you should be on this path. I think you need to go back to waiting for some mythological spook force to fix your problems. It's not going to happen. But we should know that. All right. But anyway, let me just run through a couple quick announcements and we'll get right into it. Stay on for about an hour and a half or so, maybe max 2. We'll see how it goes. Again, just to reiterate, no people emailing again about the Journey of the Black Adept Conference in October. It's again, I'll keep putting this out there every time I come live. It's too early really to make a decision on that. So as of now, we're going to move forward as if it's still going on, unless something really drastic happens that changes that. A couple people have emailed. Please do not send any registration payments for the event now, just in case we have to make any changes. I'd hate to have to go back and give refunds and all that. So hold off on making any payments right now. Let's give a little more time. I think we'll have a clearer picture end of July going into August. But as of right now, we're moving forward and proceeding forward as if that event will still take place. If you are interested in presenting at that event in October, shoot me an email. Let me know what topic you would like to present, as long as it's in line with what we deal with. And space permitting, we will get you on the itinerary / agenda. All right. So that event's still going on as planned. Okay. For those that are Patreon members, we have our Ritual of the Holy Death tomorrow. Hopefully all you guys can make it. Saturday tomorrow, 2:30 in the afternoon. If you are a tier 2 and 3 Patreon member, you have access to the live ritual. After the ritual, we will have a Q&A discussion on Santa Muerte, the Holy Death, and kind of what we did. Again, that is for Patreon members only, tier 2, 3, and 4, I should say. We have a tier 4 now. If you have not seen my Patreon page, check it out when you get a chance. Just go to patreon.com /Paniti. I'll put that in the chat like I will the email, even though everything I'm telling you again is in the description box of all the YouTube videos, everything I'm telling you. But I'm going to put it in the chat just so people can see it. That's the Patreon page, and the email to contact me again for everything that I'm making announcements about. This is the email address. Again, this is in the description box. And everything I'm saying also is on our Primordial Chaos 9 Instagram page. Check that out. And also check out Primordial Chaos on Facebook. Those are the best platforms to stay up to date as far as what's going on with classes, rituals, events, and things of that nature. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Also, after you subscribe, hit the notification bell because that'll give you a notification anytime I upload a video or do a live like this. You'll get notified. Also, don't forget to hit the like button, please. Greatly appreciated. It expands the channel out on more search engines on YouTube. The more likes, the more people the videos reach. So please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell. All right. So we have that coming up on May 9th. We have the class of Hecate. We'll be going over Hecate as the goddess of dark sorcery, dark magic, and witchcraft. That class is open for everybody. Anybody can sign up for that class. That'll be on Saturday, May 9th, 3 to 6:30 p.m. That class is $55. It is a 3.5-hour class. It is a live interactive class with myself and everybody else in the class. It is a private link you'll get when you sign up. It can be paid for by PayPal using the email that I just put into the chat. When you do send your PayPal payment, please include your name and your email address so we can have you on the list and send you the link for the class. That'll be Saturday, May 9th, 3 to 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That is open for anybody that wants to sign up for that class. I did get emails. I'm looking to possibly going into next month with with a lot of stuff that's going on to get the upcoming summer curriculum. The next full online session of classes will begin going into late June, early July, somewhere in that area. I'm not going to lie, I still haven't had time to get a lot of that stuff together because of some, obviously what's been going on the last few weeks, work and just a bunch of other different things. But that is still on the agenda. Hopefully I get around to that shortly. And that's, I think, covers majority of the announcements. I don't think I forgot anything. And the last thing, which has been consistent, and I appreciate everybody reaching out for spiritual consultations and readings. Now that I'm centered at home for the time being until we get back, I can pretty much get to everybody within roughly 24 hours if schedule works out. So if you're interested in a reading or a consultation, you can shoot me an email, same email. Please specify in the email if you want a reading or a consultation. The readings I usually do, I've kind of narrowed it to just basically working, doing demonic readings or a reading with the Holy Death, spirits of the dead. You could specify, but I'm trying to keep it in that line to move away from a lot of the traditional stuff. Try not to really deal with too much of that. And if we do, obviously we want to transform and reform it to make it fit our path and needs. All right. So anyway, I think that covers everything. Announcements, going ons. Again, anything I discussed, you can shoot me an email. Again, don't forget to check out the Patreon channel, patreon.com/Beniti. And again, everything I'm telling you is on Primordial Chaos 9 on Instagram and Primordial Chaos on Facebook. All right. So having said that, real quick, as I said I would do because of what's going on, I will briefly, in the beginning of videos, just for a couple of minutes, not to stay on it too long, as I've been saying the last couple of weeks, just to address it briefly, not to give it too much life and energy. Just a quick check-in with the COVID-19. Hopefully everybody, again, is staying active. Hopefully you're exercising regularly. Hopefully you're educating on taking supplements for your immune system. Hopefully you're doing regular exercise, okay? Hopefully you are getting the proper amount of rest and sleep. Hopefully you are staying productive and active. Productive, most importantly. You should be intently on your ritualistic work right now, your meditations, your studying. We have to look at in a time like this, as my mother used to say years ago, you got to look for the silver lining in things. And this is a great time to really, really work on self, number one. And this is actually a great time, believe it or not, and I'm going to talk a little bit about it today, where nobody's looking at the financial possibilities. You say, what are you talking about? Economy, this and that. There's money there. There's a market for everything. You just need to know how you can stomp upon certain things and take advantage of it. Okay. So it's important that we're staying productive and active. An idle mind is a waste, because if your mind is idle and you ain't doing anything, more than likely your attention and your thoughts are focused on useless bullshit. And usually that's when chaos kind of creeps in and kind of can consume an individual, because they have no natural flowing harmony with their thoughts. So there's no excuse. Definitely we can't use the excuse now. We don't have time. That's the excuse nobody can use right now. Okay. So just hopefully we're educating ourselves. It looks like we're seeing some signs in most places, including New York, that there might be a slight curve point we're hitting with this thing. I still have been along the lines June, July. I think when you're going to see more things of normalcy, whether before that we might see certain areas get back to doing certain things, which again, it's going to depend a lot to do with where you live and what's going on in your city, your state, your town. That's going to have a lot. And we got to understand and prepare. It's not like just a click hitting the start button. Everything's just not going to go back to normal right out the gate. It's going to be a process, which really is irrelevant to us, because remember, when we are moving and flowing with change, we make the transition with change. When we are fighting change, it's when change manifests chaos and it consumes us, right? There's an old saying amongst the Shriners, right? When a Shriner crosses the hot desert, it's important he keeps pace with the sun. As long as he keeps pace with the sun, he will make it or achieve what he's trying to achieve or obtain. But if the sun gets in front of him, it will consume him, right? It's a symbolic term. So it's important we keep pace with the sun right now. It's important that as change manifests, and we're in a great time of change. This is a change. You understand? It's important that we make the change with it. So yes, let's make sure we're in the right mind frame, because this is a great, intense time of change. All right. So what I wanted to talk about, you see the title King Belial. I'll get to your comments and your questions as soon as we go through it. So just real quick. All right. If I didn't greet you personally, infernal blessings to all. So if I missed you, Patra, Shaquel, Alex, this is actually a Grateful Dead t-shirt. I was listening to a little Grateful Dead this morning. I was in a Grateful Dead mood this morning when I was exercising, lifting my weights. I had them cranking in my headphones. So yeah, I've shifted back. I get into these moods sometimes. Sometimes I go through intense moods of listening to old school or classic hip hop. It might be old school or classic R&B. Sometimes I just came out of a fierce phase, which I'm craving to go back a little more. I was in to a lot of the classic 80s metals music. I was working out to that. That was giving me a lot of energy. So now I was in more of kind of a classical rock mode. So I was cranking some Grateful Dead today. They're a little bit more laid back, but a lot of science, in that. Music is a beautiful thing, especially now. Music is probably a gift that's probably more important to us now than ever, because music incites certain emotions, energies, and feelings. Music is one of the key components, and I always talked about something over the year called music magic, that you should utilize, because music can be used as a gateway or porthole to time travel. As I've mentioned before in the past, what I've done over the years, the last couple of years, I've created playlists by decades with all different genres. And I'll play that when I'm exercising, walking, etc. And it gets you locked in, because we know music can open up and incite emotions and vibrations and feelings that are affiliated with that particular time period, that particular artist, or you first heard that song, your mind automatically connects with that year. The imagery can be so strong to the point where you can remember the first time where you were when you heard that song. You can remember exactly what was there. You can remember exactly what you were wearing. You can remember who you were with. You can remember certain particular, some can even remember the exact day. It goes to show you, and it's kind of connect to what I'm going to talk about today, sound and vibration and frequency. Sound and vibration and frequency, when creates a perfect harmony, can open up spiritual doors, spiritual awareness, can open up portions and levels of your psyche that you get that, those gifts of clairvoyance, intuition, psychometry, right? That's the objective. That's what creates the healing energy. And it's funny that the music thing just randomly comes up. Music can do that through sound and vibration. It can open our psyche up. It can be a vortex to time travel, whether it's a slow jam that we reminisce from when we went to our first prom or previous relationship, or a childhood moment growing up, or a song that we automatically hear. We connect it back to, a moment growing up in our household. It could be a song that you heard your mother or your father play regularly. I've had those experiences where if I hear a song like that my mother, like, I remember certain incidences where she was in the kitchen cooking. You could even smell the food sometimes if you're really tapped in. The list goes on and on. Holiday music tends to do that for me a lot. Holiday music over the years for me has been impactful because it incites a long list of events, all good. Because that has always been a great time of year for me for the most part. And it always connects back to great moments of childhood. And remember, the key is what we have to understand, and the importance with mantras, chants, the importance of it is, especially with music and sound, if you listen to the music of your generation, literally you will find it makes you feel and it keeps you younger. Literally, it can replenish cells. It can replace cells. It can reverse the aging process. Why? Because spiritually and mentally, you are linked into that particular period. And usually it connects you to moments via the music where you were at your most prime, best, or great moments in your life. So you tap into that positive energy that is uplifting and makes you feel a certain way. This is why sometimes I know I'm noticing this more as I'm getting a bit older. It's tough for me to relate to some of this new music because you feel like it's like out of your wavelength. I know some of us are in denial, and we don't want to pretend like we're not getting old, but you don't want to be that old creepy dude who's in the back of the club, the old 50-plus-year-old man who's wearing outdated clothes, and you're in the young boy and young girl club because you're in denial that you are of a different age group. So it's important we listen to music of our generation. I'm not saying you can't listen to new music, but I'm saying don't be listening to shit that is past your time. As far as you're past it, actually. I got to be honest with you. Look, I know, because I remember my parents and the elders saying us to it back then, the music we were listening to, what's that crap you're listening to, right? So I see my father and mother in me now. Like I catch myself saying that when I hear some of this new music, like, what the fuck is this? But I also understand that's their stuff. That's their generation. Some of it's pretty bad. I can't even understand it. Like, to be honest with you, some of the words, I don't care if it's trap music or if it's this, not really a big into that new death metal stuff. To me, it's just screaming and yelling, not knocking it. But if that's your thing, whatever. I just can't really connect. But I understand why I can't connect, because that's not my generation. So it's important if you can use music as a magical tool to replenish aging cells, to create overall health, healing, and well-being. I told you, I gave this little example to test, and you can fuck around with it and play around with it however you see fit. Create it by decades. And if you want to separate the genres or keep them together, that's up to you. Start from your childhood when you can remember music. So I'm born in the 70s. So I love a lot of music from the mid to late 70s. I don't care if it's classic rock. I love old school R&B from the 70s. I thought a lot of the best shit came out in the 70s. And then, even your what they call pop or mainstream, some of the radio hits. Because remember, during them periods, to hear music, to hear your favorite artists, we didn't have all these platforms, right? We didn't have social media and the internet and all these apps. In order to hear your shit, you either had to go to the record store and buy your records, right? Even 8-tracks at the time. Now I'm going back. We're really dating ourselves. But I missed the vinyl. There was nothing like, taking a trip to the record store and getting a vinyl album, you know, coming home playing it, you know, the 45s or the 78s. I'm probably you younger people probably don't even know what the fuck I'm talking about. But you know, back then you either had to buy your records to listen to the groups or the musicians you liked, or you had to listen to it on the radio. Now, I mean, we're spoiled. We can go onto an app and boom, just click our thumb and we got music. And don't get me wrong, it's a beautiful thing. But what I've always said, the upside and the downside to technology, there's two good things to it. Well, there's two sides to it. One, I'm still along the line when it comes to books and music. There's no, especially with books, it's not like holding a good book in your hand. The upside, same thing. I do miss that feeling. Like it was just the whole process, the whole experience of, even if it was a cold winter day or the weekend, it was just that whole process of taking the time out to plan, to make a trip, you know, to the record store to get your records. You know, I think with the technology, the upside is we have access to everything at our fingertips. That's the beauty of it. You know, we could just, boom, we're there. The downside, I think, what a lot of the technology has done, it is killed our creativity, right? We've lost our creativity because we become so dependent on artificial intelligence and technology, we become lazy. This also explains why a lot of our children are becoming overweight, why a lot of our children are becoming sick and ill, because they don't go outside and play no more. I even know this, even though I've been down here now in South Florida for several years, but even when I go back up to New York and go home, you don't see kids outside like that no more playing in the street. You don't see kids playing stickball, stoop ball, ringalivio, running bases, tag, run, catch, and kiss. We did things where we used our creativity. We didn't need a lot of gadgets, you know, and instruments. We made instruments with, you know, pots and pans, or we used to take the empty paper towel thing, and that was a trumpet. You know, we used to do shit like that. We used to use the old paint cans with drumsticks. You know, just shit we did that we were creative. I think with the technology, we've lost all that. And when you lose your creative ability to a certain degree, it does affect your spirituality. I think there's too much artificial intelligence and technology when we're solely dependent on it. When it's being abused to the point where, as we see, some people can't even operate, they can't even leave their house and be without their cell phone for 10 minutes. They go fucking nuts. Like they it's like almost if they can't function without a cell phone. You understand what I'm saying? Hold on one second. But the music, yeah, I mean, good old fucking days, right? Hold on one second. Yeah. So the power of the music, it's important we don't lose our creativity. Like I said, the kids, they don't go outside and play no more because they're more wrapped into their game systems, their cell phones, you know, their tablets. Now, even though my little guy is big, you know, I see that caught my eye at the end there, Scott. Yeah, climbing trees, maybe making clubhouses, maybe making tree houses or forts, whatever you want to call them. I mean, this shit we did. And I remember back in them days, especially summertime when school was out, my parents would say shit like my father, go out and play, go do something. If you didn't, they would find something for your ass to do. So we don't have that no more. And like I say, these kids, like even my little guy loves his tablet, but I make sure I get him out there, make sure he's playing sports, he gets outside, get some interaction with nature, play, get some fresh air. These kids don't do it. They just want to sit in their rooms all day. They want to be on their gadgets. And this is why we got these, I know we call them millennials, you know, and it's not to knock if you're a millennial, but I think it's a different mindset. Millennials just want to sit in the house and have everything pretty much be brought to their feet. And that's not reality. So it's a double-edged sword when it comes to the technology. But the music, anyway, I know I kind of veered off a bit, but it was kind of connected to what we were talking about. So I want to get a little bit into the chants and the mantras, working with it as a science. We should be focusing on right now with everything going on, overall health and well-being and financial prosperity, right? These are key things we need to be focusing on because we're going through a serious transitional change, all of us on an individual level and collectively. When I say collectively, I'm talking about obviously the economy. But if we take care of that individual aspect first, whatever will open up to us will open up to us. So we can't worry about what's happening outside of us as a whole, because that's not something we're going to have full control over. But we can start with ourselves. So that's what I want to kind of show you. Now, I connected Belial to it because I'm going to use the Belial aspect of an example. All right. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Belial, and then I'm going to get kind of shifted to the chants and the mantras. There's a good book by Edgar Craval, Chants of Belial. Actually, Aseneth Mason wrote it with him. It's basically Edgar Craval. I talked about this book, I believe, last week. It's a very short pamphlet. I'd recommend anybody who does any work with Belial should get it. There's some simple ritual work you can do in there if you so choose. It's a very, very straight to the point, really good book. First, let's talk about who Belial is and some of the misconceptions behind Belial. And before I do that, I want to say this. I think we always just hear, which is true, we always hear how Belial is this intense, demonic, spiritual energy to work with. You know, we always hear about the ferociousness of Belial. Don't play with it. It can be very intense. He is very powerful, and all those things are true. Belial is a devouring energy. And one thing the adept or the practitioner must understand, once you unleash the energy of Belial, it's like almost likened to Sekhmet, etc., and other energies. You really can't reverse the process in the sense because actually the Belial energy that you unleash within yourself, it is very devouring by nature. First within, and obviously if you're doing work or specific external targets, that can be very, very interesting experience. So yes, all those things are true. You do need to be conscious of that, just like most other archetypes or spirits or demonic energies you work with on this path. You definitely need to be educated to know what you're dealing with. It's that simple. As they say, knowing is half the battle, right? It's another famous saying my mother used to say, knowing is half the battle. Most people don't go into these works with knowing. They go in sometimes misled, and usually not by somebody else, but by themselves, because they established this preconceived notion of what they thought it was, rather than seeing it for what it actually is. And I keep talking about that, all right? Belial can also be used. I decided to put that title in the video today because, which most people, you don't really hear them talk about a lot, Belial can be also utilized in a very powerful way for materialistic things, especially for finances and money, physical things such as overall health and well-being, which, again, not talked about in my opinion on a wide scale level. Yes, Belial is for those things. And it's important if we're going to work with some of these darker energies or these klepothic energies or some of these klepothic gods or goddesses. I think this is a great one now. And again, I'm not downplaying the intensity. If those who have worked with Belial and you're familiar with Belial, it's there. I'm not downplaying it. I'm trying to get you to see in its totality the different aspects that's connected to Belial. I'm going to go through that, and then I'm going to go a little bit more in depth to the science of mantras and chanting. And usually mantras and chanting is incorporated in a lot of the ritualistic work we do on this path. And is there healing energies in mantras and chants? Most definitely. I'm going to get into a little bit of that. And I think a lot of us should be up on our chanting and mantra game right now. I mentioned the Kali Mantra Magic book last week. That's a great book. to work with Kali energy on a healing level, a financial level. There's great financial mantra rituals in there that are basic and simple. These are the things where our mind should be right now, because the situation and the time we're dealing with in the now is clearly dictating what chaos we need to make order out of. The work should be on point, or straight to the point, and simple. But in what most people are labeling as strange times or fearful times, we embrace fear. We embrace panics or pandemics in the sense, no, not that we're grateful it's here, because we never want to see anybody get ill, sick, or die. But we know it's all part of that chaotic spectrum. We know it's all part of the chaosophy we talk about, which is just another term for chaos philosophy. And we know there's going to be always moments we deal with high levels of chaos. We deal with controlled levels and levels we can simply subdue. But all of them, we have the ability to make order out of. And that's where our mindset needs to be. All right, so let's talk a little bit about Belial. Belial is a demon or evil spirit, appears, and I'm just going to do it's about 2.5, well, no, it's about 4 pages of the brief introduction in this book, Chants of Belial by Edgar Craval, because it gives good brief synopsis of who King Belial is. And then I'll talk a little bit about Belial, and you get it. Belial is a demon or evil spirit that appears in a number of sources, from the Bible and Jewish apocryphal literature to modern Satanism and the writings of Anton LaVey. He is also mentioned in such texts as the Dead Sea Scrolls, okay, where he appears as the angel of darkness and the antagonist of God. In the old sources, his name is used as a synonym or synonym for Satan, and he is one of the most commonly recognized personifications of evil. It is even thought that the name Belial or Belial does not refer to any specific spirit, but is simply a title signifying wickedness. Now, we got to understand, a lot of these names are titles, just like it is with the different masks of Lucifer or in other paths or system. They are titles, because usually the name signifies the function of what the archetype or the energy represents. People always don't stop and think and look at that. Now, other thing I want to make sure clear, we'll talk a little bit about it, but I want to add this. We got to get out of the thinking, the limited mindset thinking. I know when we hear the word Goetia, a lot of people are still stuck as if the 72 Goetia, which the Greek word, it's a Greek word, Goetia, for Damon, that's all, is exclusively attributed to Solomon's temple, the Seal of Solomon. And it is, as it described in here, there's a connection to the Jewish Apocrypha, but it goes way, way back beyond that. As the Bible intermingled with other cultures, it's important to understand that as their creation stories came from the Babylonian creation myths, whether it was ancient Samaria and the story of the Anunnaki, that's basically your first 7 chapters of Genesis. When you're reading Genesis, you're reading the Atrahasis of the ancient Sumerians. You'll see Egyptian culture infused in there, Sumerian culture. So it gets a little confusing, as I said before, because a lot of these ancient deities that predated monotheism, Christianity, Islam, and Judaism, right? They go back beyond the 3 major monotheistic religions, but because people became familiar with it through those modern day religions, some people are under the illusion that it's automatically, this is the point of origin, and it's not. We need to understand that. Religion did, in those 3 monotheistic religions, there's so many different cultures, right? And we also have to get a good understanding that a lot of these books, and I've talked about this several times, a lot of the books that were written, I'm going to say prior to the very early 2000s, a lot of those books you see that were put out on the Goetia, or working with the 72 Goetia, or the 72 demons, or the 72 angels, whatever term you want to give it, were written by people who really were not occult or left-hand path practitioners. They were either some form of spiritualist, or they were into some form of mysticism. We have to understand that. Only until the last, I'm going to say about 20 years, 15 to 20 years, a lot of the more recent books that have come out on the occult or on the Goetia from an occult left-hand path perspective have come from actual practitioners. So I say that to say, because that's where a lot of the religion gets infused, okay? That's where a lot of the religious connection. So Belial or any of these other goetic spirits are not limited to Hebrew mysticism and exclusively to Solomon's temple. Now, the question we should be asking ourselves when we do the research, and we know for those that have done the research, when we talk about draconian magic, when we talk about working with the current of the Klepothic, and when we talk about the Sitra Achra on the other side, which is the antithesis to the Kabbalah, the Tree of Death, we know it's talking about a time frame. Really, you can't put a time on it. There is no beginning point. And that's the problem with certain dogmas and philosophies, and that's the inconsistency that humans suffer from, because they feel like they need a beginning and an end point. And that's usually to make them feel comfortable. When we talk about the abyss and the void and the darkness, when we talk about Leviathan, when we talk about that primordial chaotic energy, we're talking about no specific time point governs that. And that's where these beings emerged from. Now, as time went on, yes, it emerged in different cultures and texts because they connected with that primordial chaotic energy and the deities and the energies that emerged from it as time went on. And then, as we know, as we get down to more modern day times through monotheism, it really gets watered down and it really gets confusing, because we see a grafting and a taking coming from all different angles. It's important we understand that, all right? Let me continue here, all right? Okay, for example, in the Bible, we read about sons of Belial, which is interpreted as vile or worthless ones. Other meanings of the name include destruction, ruin, death, the abyss, lawlessness, or without a master. The etymology, however, is not clear. Now, we hear terms like that. We say, damn, that sounds, not to us, but to people that may not be familiar with this path, they say, man, that doesn't sound too positive. It depends on how you look at it. Let's look at some of these terminologies. Again, destruction. Destruction could be a good thing, because destroying certain ways about yourself that need to be destroyed, which Belial does. And from destruction, reconstruction emerges. So destruction is not a bad thing. Same thing with ruin. Death is not always in the form of a physical death. Death is a form of completely annihilating something, whether it's outside of the physical, could be annihilating or dying or bringing death to a bad habit or behavior about yourself. So we look at these titles from that perspective. The average non-aware person would hear those terms and go, that sounds pretty morbid, right? And usually they're going to respond like that because they're coming from a indoctrinated philosophical religious mindset. So it's kind of tough for them to understand it if it's not explained. So we need to really be conscious of that when we hear these terms, right? And none of these interpretations can be dismissed as false or claimed to be the correct one. The most common interpretation is derived from the Talmud. And if you don't know what the Talmud is, right? The Talmud is basically what your Hasidic Jews follow today. Now, those who may not be familiar with your Hasidics, depends on where you live. Obviously, if you grew up in New York like I did, you know who the Hasidic Jews are. Those are the individuals you'll see dressed in all black with the black hats on, and they have the curls on the side of their head. They would be considered your modern day Orthodox Jews. They are strict Orthodox Jews. Your basic Reformed Jews. They're not strict like that. They might observe the Sabbath, etc. But the Orthodox Jews are really heavy into the Talmud. What's the origin of the Talmud? Now, this is the legend. The Talmud is very similar to what the Muslims call their hadith, right? And I always had arguments over the years with Muslims at one point when I was in Islam a few years back. The Quran says it is the best of hadith, right? But you'll find most Sunni Muslims, or most of your modern day Islamic practitioners, they follow the hadith more than they do the Quran, right? So like Bukhari is one of the most popular authors of the hadith. That's probably one of the most famous hadith writers. There's others, but I'm just throwing Bukhari out there. And you'll see a lot of these mainstream Muslims today, they follow the tales of the hadith more than they do the Quran, when it says in the Quran is the best of hadith, right? Anyway, I'll leave that alone. I don't want to stay on that too long. The Talmud is in my opinion, and I'll tell you why I say that, is almost the Hebrew or the Jewish version of what the Muslims call the Hadith. Now, what they claim in Orthodox Judaism is when Moses was so-called on top of Mount Sinai, receiving the Torah or the law, which, by the way, there's 613 commandments, not 10, but that's a whole nother story. They claim there was a group of elders at the bottom of the Mount Sinai receiving the oral law. This is what's in, or you can look this up, what I'm saying. So they say that Moses was receiving the written law on top of Mount Sinai, and there was a group of Jewish or Hebrew elders at the bottom of Mount Sinai receiving the oral law. And then after they received it, they wrote these things down and compiled them. That is your Talmud. You will also find that most Orthodox Hasidic Jews follow the Talmud more than they do the Torah. A lot of their traditional practices, like for an example, there's a practice of, in certain situations or scenario, believe it or not, look it up, when a Jewish rabbi is having sex with his wife, there's a sheet between them, and it's just some stupidity, some purification, sanctity bullshit. There's just a lot of stupid shit in there. I use that as one example because none of that stuff can be found in the Bible. None of that stuff can be found in the Torah that they claim to so-called uphold. So we need to understand these terms. So I know some people that confuse the Talmud and the Torah as the same thing because they don't do their study. The Talmud and the Torah are not the same thing. It's two different things. It's important we understand that. You will find information in there on both. All right. So there's your little history on that. All right, here we go. Okay, so the Talmud explains the name Belial as composed of two words, Belial and Ol, or Yol, which means without a yoke or without advantage, i.e. worthless. There's also a theory that derives the name Belial from the Babylonian goddess Bilali. In a similar way as the name of the demon, Astareth is believed to originate from the Phoenician goddess Astarte, or Astareth. This claim fits the idea that many demons from Solomonic grimoires, such as the Lesser Key of Solomon, where Belial is listed among the 72 spirits that constitute the ritual system of Goetia, were originally ancient gods and goddesses. That's what I was just talking about a few minutes ago. And the author here, Edgar Cavell, is confirming they go back way before the Lesser Key of Solomon. They go back way before the Torah, the Talmud, the Bible, or the Quran. Hold on one thing. I didn't get my charger. I didn't realize I didn't plug the charger in. Hold on. Plug it up. Laptop, no charger. All right, so that's an important thing to understand right there. All right, it goes back way before to the ancient gods and goddesses of the aforementioned cultures. Now, this is why you've heard me talk about the last several months to try to, well, not try, we should be releasing those old paradigms, okay? Those old traditional systems, because we get stuck. If it's always leading you back to some religious school, that's how you can confirm you're stuck. And that's why I've been talking about a lot of those other paths, Ifa and Santeria. People still struggle with disconnecting Catholicism and Christianity from it, okay? Because it always seems no matter where you go or how far you venture away from it, there's always some fork in the road that makes you come right back to it. And it's important that I'm glad the author said that, and I forgot that was in there. And I've been saying that for the longest in previous videos. It's very important we understand it goes beyond the Lesser Key of Solomon and a lot of what we term these religious schools of thought. All right. So so the original ancient gods and goddesses who came to be demonized by Christian, its connection, right? In the Bible, the Apocrypha. Now, the word Apocrypha means hidden. Understand that. And a lot of people don't understand the book of Revelations, right? And when you talk to Christians, they don't even know the history of their Bible. And that's the funny thing. It's pretty sad. When you look at the history of the book of Revelations, right? Everybody's using this shit now because of what's going on with this pandemic, right? So we have a group of people out here now who are these religious fanatics and nuts who want to talk about how it's the end times, and they're quoting Revelations. I had a conversation with a lady a couple of days ago, and I asked her what year was the book of Revelations revealed in. She didn't know. I said, that's pretty bad. If we're quoting a book, we should know. The book of Revelations was revealed in the year, or exposed in the year 96 AD, which according to religious theology will be 96 years after the death of Christ. It's so-called in religious theology was revealed to John, son of Zebedee, who was one of the original 12 apostles on the island of Patmos in Greek. And it was revealed, the most important thing, in a dream form. And remember, the book of Revelation, when you understand your history, wasn't even part of the original compilation of the Bible until the Council of Trent, the Council of Nicaea, till they came together during those periods to decide what books they would leave in and what books they would leave out. For an example, the book of Barnabas, the 222 books of the prophet Barnabas, who was the half brother of Jesus through Joseph. That book was left out because it gives a whole different account of the crucifixion. The Eastern Orthodox Church and the Catholic Church have an additional 6 books that also are comprised of that Apocrypha, such as Sirach, the Book of Wisdom, the Book of Manasseh. All those things you should read and study them, because there is some science in there, especially if you are into this. Not for any religious purposes, but you should have that history. And most people will quote. So we got people out here talking these end times, and they don't understand the context of the book of Revelation and how it was in a dream form. And how you go through the book of Revelations, and it's easy, not even just with Revelations, you could do that with a lot of books. It's easy to take a specific section and liken it to something going on in the world today and go, here, see, I told you, it's the end of times, right? This has been going on for years. And any of us that's of a certain age, we know. I remember back in 1992, there was a group, can't remember the name of the group. I've been hearing this end of the world shit since the 80s and 90s. And that's all a distraction. Okay, we got those groups out there. Now this is a prime time for them. And here's the funny thing. Where are all these evangelists, right? Where's the Joel Osteens and what's the other one? The dude looked like a fat frog. Damn, what's the name of that dude? He's popular out of Atlanta. TD Jakes, Benny Hinn. Where are all these rich multi-million-dollar evangelists? What they doing for their congregations? All the money they got, shouldn't they be feeding the less fortunate of their congregation? Shouldn't they be helping out their congregation with money? No. You just saw recently in the news, if you paid attention a few weeks ago, what's his name is back? Jim Baker is back in the news. Well, was it Jim Graham, Billy Graham, or one of them? Jim Baker. He was selling, and he just got summoned. If he didn't stop, they were going to arrest him. I think it was in St. Louis. Yeah, TD Jakes. Yeah, I call him the fat frog. It looks like a fat bullfrog. This guy, Jim Baker, or Bill, whatever his name is, Google it, you'll see. He was selling healing water, claiming it healed the coronavirus. Now, here's a dude who's been caught with prostitutes, transvestites, done drugs, did time, came out of jail, if you're familiar with that story. And now he's back on the scene. It's so easy how these guys get a free pass when they just repent. They get everything clean slate. They start over. And it's sad in this time they would try to take advantage of innocent people. Okay? So we got those nutheads out there. Then we got the 5G nutheads out there, okay, who sounds good. My son actually just presented a video to me a few days ago. And what this dude is claiming in the video, and I had to listen to the whole thing all the way through. You know, they're claiming, and again, we need to educate ourselves on ionized and non-ionized radiation. We need to understand the FDA levels that are approved of it, that are non-approved of it, and look at the data to show what's in those 5G wavelengths and towers. I know a lot of people want to correlate that to the actual virus. I got some concerns with the validity of that, okay? They're claiming that the high level of radiation frequencies create mutated cells which secrete the fluid that creates the actual virus itself. And that's what attacks the immune system. Yes, we do understand radiation, as in chemotherapy and working with cancer, can be damaging. We do know the damaging effects it can have, but there's no factual data that can support that there are high levels of ionized radiation in that 5G. I know a lot of people want to accept that and believe that. I need to see the data. And here's the other problem. There's people that say, oh, the WHO, the World Health Organization is lying to you, the CDC, and the government websites, but they're getting their data to support what they're saying from the same sources. You can't use the source you're killing and then use that same source to validate what you're saying. That's the problem that I have. So where are you getting your data from? You're making these statements. Look, anybody can go online and Google radiation, wavelengths. It's very easy to put together a convincing presentation or argument, but I need to see the factual data, okay? Is it possible? Could be. Can you confirm it 100%? Absolutely no. Now, again, my theory is just me, and I said this a few weeks back, and then I'm gonna move on because I don't want to stay on this. I do think it was man-made, and I do think it is a viral that was geared towards population control. One of the things I feel like that, there was an article that came out today. Now, this economic crisis is gonna, they were worried about our Social Security being gone before this. They're saying it's gonna probably be wiped out sooner than they thought. I basically believe this is just to reset the entire economy. I really believe this is to basically wipe out the national debt. And this is what's going to happen. And you remember, you heard me say this. See, we think on a practical level. We don't go Spookville. We don't go conspiracies. Here's what's going to happen. And think about this for a minute. They're giving you this little bullshit stimulus. Now the new thing they're trying to pass is, till the things get back to order in a few months, give every American $2,000 a month. They're giving more away free. Pay attention now, okay? They're going to give people all this money, wipe out debt, a lot of people's credit. They'll start everybody over from scratch, and you'll have some money in your pocket. Think about this for a minute. For those of us who are looking at the overall big picture, that is a doorway or opening for us in many ways if we utilize it right. But who are going to be the first people, for the most part, rather than have their debt wiped out, their credit score back to perfect and having money in their pocket, right? They're going to see they got credit, they got money, and then what are they going to start doing? They're going to go out and start buying cars, rims, shit they can't afford, houses, just nonsense and bullshit. So you have the economy, national debt wiped out, and then they give you money, and they know they're putting it in the hands of certain individuals who have no discipline or don't know what to do money. They go pump it right back into the economy. National debt is wiped out. We have a whole new, reset new economy, and then we still have the bottom feeders who are dumb enough to throw all their money right back in to even boost the economy up more, but put them in debt and make them a slave to keep paying more, resetting whether it's a new currency they introduce, which I believe that's what they're going to get ready to do. Because remember, after every global pandemic, there was a financial reset. And if you go look when the dollar was first introduced, okay? And I want to get into all this. So stop with this 5G shit. I know people want to reach for straws. If that's your belief, it has nothing to do with 5G. I believe this is population control. I think it is a man-made virus. It was created. And I do believe its purpose is to, one, why for the most part it attacks the elderly. It's to wipe out the strain on our healthcare system, which we see what it's done with this. And it's to replenish Social Security, because for people like me and you, there may not be no Social Security in the next 10 to 15 years. So what do we live off of, right? For those that might be depending on it. So look at this thing in a bigger picture. So that's all I'm going to kind of say on that. I ain't going to really get into too much of that, but I'm not really feeling that 5G stuff. I think it's old. I think it's blown out of proportion. I don't think they would go to this. And I heard the theories. Well, you look at the Hong Kong flu. Right after that, they were working with radar and military technology. I heard that theory. Oh, then you go back to that, the Spanish flu. Prior to the Spanish flu, that's when they started working with satellites. Was the first time we started working with satellites. And everybody's coming up with these theories. Every time they introduce a high level of technology, there's a pandemic. And it's the radiation and the technology that's mutating these cells, that's secreting the fluids that are actually what they're calling coronavirus. Sounds good, but there's no data to 100% prove that. I just don't think that's the case. I always think when there's a war or a pandemic, it's population control. So I'm not feeling that shit. If that's your belief, if you think it has something to do with it, so be it. I don't. I think this bigger thing at play here. I think it's bigger than that. because I can't see going through that. What would be the purpose of putting yourself in a worse financial situation? I understand the development in technology and what it's supposed to do move forward. I can't see that ruining or destroying economic stability unless you were trying to reset the economy. That's the only way. Okay, that's the only way. Or call it a universal currency, some form of cryptocurrency. That makes more sense to me. That I can see. But this 5G shit, nah, I don't think that. I think we're dealing with some population control. But anyway, let's not stay on that. Let me finish with this. All right, so we see we need to go beyond the religious aspect. Belial is a synonym for the prince of darkness, the Antichrist, the devil, the father of idolatry, the demon of impurity, the angel of lawlessness, and the ruler of the world, identified with Samael. In Goetia, Belial is a powerful demon king created next after Lucifer. This is why he can be confused in some text with Lucifer. He appears in the form of two beautiful angels sitting in a chariot of fire, distributing presentations and senatorships and granting favors of both friends and enemies. That's why I say he can be petitioned for most any aspect in life, okay? Especially in this time, for overall health, well-being, for financial prosperity. He is a great Goetia or spirit to work with. He is also one of the four ruling force of all Goetic spirits associated with the direction of the north and the element of earth in ceremonial systems of the Western traditions, and sometimes he bears the title, the Lord of the Earth. The latter is a fairly modern association that owes much to LaVey's The Satanic Bible, where Belial represents the mastery of the earth, magic with both feet on the ground, real hardcore magical procedure, as well as independence. This is what you tap into Belial for right here. Independence, self-sufficiency, and personal accomplishment. So he's so much more. However, it is the old Goetic legend that serves as the key to his gnosis in the best way. According to the story, King Solomon, the greatest magician of all times, or at that time, summoned, bound, and imprisoned the most evil spirits of the earth in the brazen vessel, which he cast into a deep lake in Babylon, so that the demons would never again trouble mankind. This vessel did not remain, This vessel did not remain at the bottom of the lake forever. Though believing that it contained a hidden treasure, the Babylonians retrieved it and broke the seal by which the demons were bound. When the seal was broken, all spirits immediately flew out and dispersed to their former dwellings, except for Belial, who entered a statue and became an oracle to his worshippers, thus acting as the intermediary between the spirits and sorcerers, seeking the wisdom and the power of the Sitra Achra. And he is great if you work with the Klipothic, if you're working with that Lilith energy to get to the Sitra Achra, the other side. Belial always appears as the master sorcerer. He has other demon spirits he commands that are representations of his witches, or sorcerers, right? So there's a connection to this. We should know these aspects, because if we're working these paths, we can utilize these concepts as far as our spiritual growth, or as I mentioned earlier, personal accomplishment. And that's what it's about, right? In the interpretation, Belial is one of the primal initiators on the path of the Klipoth, the guardian of the gateway to the dark tree and the mediator between the day side and the night side. Another important aspect of Belial's gnosis is related to the interpretation of his name as Sheol, which is the Greek word for hell, right? Or the abyss, and the Kabbalistic theme of the tree of life and the tree of death. The abyss is the title attributed to the hidden Sephirah Dath, almost sounds like death, D-A-A-T-H, which is positive sense translates to knowledge. And from the perspective of the Klipoth, it is known as the worthless ones. Referring to another of Belial's titles, the initiate on the path of the night side meets this demon king at the threshold of the abyss, where he guards the gateway that connects the bright and the dark sides of the tree. Thus, the initiatory process of the night side, he assists in preparation of consciousness for the opening of the gate of death. And one of the draconian gods initiators on the path, he manifests with a reptilian skin, the scaly skin of a serpent or a dragon,
representing the mystical armor that protects the initiate in clepoptic tunnels and labyrinths, and by assuming his God form, we too can become protected. Hold on, I gotta start this over. Let me restart the live on Instagram. Timed out. Let me turn this light on over here real quick. And I'll finish this up. We're almost done with this, and then I'm gonna finish up with the mantras and the chants. Hold on one second. All right. Finish this, and then we'll get to the next part. All right. So we too become protected from being devoured and destroyed by the immensity of the abyss. And that's the danger of going into the abyss or the void, or going to the Citra Aqua, to the other side. If you're not, what I was saying in the very beginning of the video, if you weren't tuned in at the time, if you're not or haven't done the knowledge, and you do not have the awareness or the know-how, and you just foolishly dive into this type of work and didn't do your homework for yourself, you can be devoured. Because remember, what you term in a three-dimensional existence, a person, place, and thing, what governs the realm of three-dimension, person, place, and thing is not the same there. You're going to find once you get in there and you unlock the deep abyss of your subconscious or your subjective mind, the rules that govern that, which really are anything or nothing, it's what governs here, it doesn't apply there. Your books can't help you there. You understand what I'm saying? If it's not in here, if you haven't gotten that understanding in here, if you haven't assimilated and dissected that knowledge, and that consciousness has not become a part of you, then that can't be used as a tool of armor when you take the journey into the abyss and the void. So your books can't help you. Your personal belief systems and moral systems can't help you. You're going into we talk the prime, right? We hear the word primordial, or primordial chaos has root in the English word prime. The prime, or the root of something, is the very core of its existence. So you're going into something that you really can't put a title on, a time frame, a beginning or an end, and it's not really governed by anything that you can particularly identify with in a three-dimensional existence of person, place, or thing. So some of the things that might come up there might seem against what some would consider morals here, right? You need to be prepared for that. Your way of thinking, your spiritual systems, or even some of your personal belief systems will be challenged by what you tap into the abyss. And if you're not prepared for that, as it says here, you can be devoured by the immensity of the abyss and the void. All right. And it's not something to be taken lightly. It's not something to be said to make it sound all to scare people or spook them out. But at the same time, it's something we need to take serious. If we're serious about this path, then we do our due diligence. We do our, as we say, our homework. So we are prepared for what we're going to get ready to deal with. Because if our goal and objective is to tap into the very real aspect of ourselves, we must go into the void, the abyss, and the darkness, right? As the old assassins and mystics said, you must go into the dark to do the work of the light. And that light is that pure intellect. We're not talking about artificial illuminating light, right? We're talking about the Lucifer, or the light-bearing energy that we would seek on this path, on the left-hand path, the occult path to self-mastery, right? Lucifer represents the embodiment of light and darkness simultaneous, which represents to an adept, we know we need both of those energies to be in harmony with ourselves. Whereas some dogmas that want to just be all dark, gloom, and doom, they're just focused on the darkness all the time. Some of the goody two-shoe right-hand path philosophy, they just want everything's light and love and peace and love. Whereas this path is about, we understand we need the harmony of both. One doesn't exist without the other, because you're only saying light because darkness exists. You wouldn't be saying it for any other reason. And darkness can't necessarily be a bad thing, because in the very first chapter of Genesis, the first verse, it says, in the beginning, God dwelled in the void and the darkness, and his spirit roamed across the void and the deep. And the next verse says, then God said, let there be light, which is confirmation that this thing that we've all been programmed with from an early age called darkness is an evil thing. Well, it can't be if this so-called monotheistic God existed in that darkness before he said, let there be light. So what are we talking about here? Okay. All right. So then it goes on to say, but like many other draconian gods and spirits, this is the last section, Belial is also a shapeshifter and manifests in many different forms. In rites of magic, we encounter him as a hooded lord, a skeletal being. I've encountered Belial like that. That description, black hood, skeletal face, but riding a black horse. Every time I do work with Belial, how I see him, my personal experience, it's personal, it's subjective, and I'm not saying it because I want you guys to embrace it. You may not see him like that, but I can connect with a certain aspect of this part here. I always see him on a black horse, and I always see him in that form, right? A skeleton being a spirit with two heads or faces, e.g., he may appear as a double-headed eagle or vulture, a horned demon, or two angels in a fiery chariot, as he is described in the Goetia. As the guardian of the gate, he usually manifests in his double aspect, two robed beings with skeletal faces. I've seen that too. Or with their heads concealed under the hood, and I usually see that too. One dressed in a white robe, the other in the black. I don't see the white and the black robe. I know what it represents, but for whatever reason. Representing two aspects of his gnosis, that of the day side and that of the night side. In this form, we will also work with him in this book. In this grimoire, I will present results of personal work with Belial, the guardian of the gate to the abyss. In my experience, this is a foremost function and service that he offers to the initiate on the path of the Klippat. I do not see him as equivalent to other spirits or deities such as Baal or Beelzebub, although such theories have been proposed by other authors and practitioners. And indeed, there are certain shared powers and attributes that allow for such associations. I personally have always suggested to people, I wouldn't get caught up in all that stuff that was just described there. I would just educate yourself, get familiar with what the spirit represents, and connect what that spirit represents to the work you're doing, and your personal connection you'll make that personal link, and it's personal for you. Don't try to have a lot of this stuff is either preconceived notions or other people's interpretations, and that's fine. And some of that could be by their experiences. So what I'm initially saying, you should always prepare yourself to have your own experience. Because if you get caught up in a lot of that stuff right there, what that can do is you can go into your work with these preconceived notions. So I always, anybody that's taken my classes, anybody that's worked with me knows, I always show you, focus on what the deity, the spirit, or the archetype represents. Line that same concept up with whatever ritual work you're doing, and I guarantee you, your own unique personal experience will manifest from that, because you're going into it with a completely open mind. You know, you're not going into it with a programmed, preconceived way of thinking, and I guarantee you'll get the better results. And so I try to stay away from a lot of that stuff right there. All right. Anyway, that pretty much wraps up. The rest is just a brief closing statement by the author in his personal work. I don't really think we need to read that. So finishing up with Belial, then I'm just going to go into for a few on the chanting and the mantras, and then I will go into the breakdown on that. So we can use, again, Belial for personal accomplishment and growth, even though he's a very volatile energy. Great time, for an example, to do rituals with Belial right now for financial prosperity. Great time to do healing work with Belial right now. And not just physical healing, we could also talk about a mental and emotional healing, okay? Hold on one second, I'm trying to find something here. There are actually, when you go through the book, you will see some of the chants. So he can be used, again, not only for intense, powerful, destructive work, which he's most known for, and by all means, that's a fact. Anybody that's worked with Belial knows the intensity of Belial, knows the power of working with that spirit, but he also can be used for personal accomplishment, be it money, finances, relationships, healing. We got to look at it in that light. So I felt to point that out in this video because of obviously what we're dealing with in the world right now. All right. So let's shift into mantras and chants real quick, and then I'll go through the chat and I'll finish with some questions. All right. Why? I mean, really, mantras and chants are important anytime. And it's something, as I said before, we use regularly on this path. Most of our ritualistic work usually contains them in some shape, form, or fashion. But right now, we need to really go into them more intense because mantra and chanting can induce high states of spiritual experiences, whether it's a state of transcendental meditation, whether it's going or tapping into what one calls, you can, if done right, astral travel. So the mantra and the chanting can open you up to a multitude of spiritual experiences. How? Okay. One, when you're doing the repetition of a mantra or a chant, and then you catch a certain cadence or rhythm. Once you catch the rhythm, the vibration, and the frequency of that chant, what happens is the vibration, your vibrations, the tone which creates the vibration, the tone from the mantra and the chant which creates the vibration can have a healing effect on all parts of your endocrine system, all parts of certain organs in your body, whether it's your liver, your kidneys, your heart. They can increase proper circulation and brain function, right? All of these things elevate your spiritual vibration and create a healing energy. And once that happens, what happens in that process, you start to become less dense. As you become less dense, that denseness that confounds you to the three-dimensional realm of person, place, a thing, once you start vibrating at a higher frequency, you now start to what we call have what some would term AOBE, out-of-body experience, right? You start to leave your body, right? Which can lead you to traveling the astral realm or beyond, or having other types of spiritual experience. And it overall can create an overall healing and spiritual effect on your body that is very impacting. So we should be focusing now and really incorporating our rituals, or just simply a good simple thing to do, not even complex. Find mantras that are associated with particular archetypes. And if you just want to sit down wherever you are and go into them, then that's fine too. And the importance of the mantras, and I notice a lot, especially with Kali. When you're doing Kali mantras, once you catch that cadence and rhythm, you'll even find we've done what we call chant circles over the years. And once you hit a certain level of unison, I'm talking more so now when you do them in a group. When you're doing this in a group, we've had this experience a multitude of times, okay? A multitude of times. As you hit a certain tone, a certain vibration and frequency, it sounds like there's it could be 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 people in the room, but it sounds like there's thousands of people in there. Because what tends to happen is you open up another porthole or dimension where you're connecting with higher energies, which creates the sound as if there is a multitude of people that are participating where there can only be 8 or 10. That's when you hit a certain tone or pitch, right? We've heard that term pitch when talking about tones and frequencies that open you up to that experience, right? These are things we need to understand because of when we transition those effects to the healing it could have physically and medically on our body, right? This is why when you look into many different cultures, I've mentioned this before with the Om chant, okay? When you're doing the Om chant, as you see, whether it's the Buddhist monks, etc., they liken the Om chant to the original vibrational sound of creation, or what our galaxy and planet was formed out of. They say when the central sun or one of the many suns collapsed and formed different stars and galaxies. Anyway, let's do this. This is not a religious channel, so we'll just remove Matt Davis. You need to go to a Christian channel. We don't give a fuck about none of that stuff. So we just remove that nonsense. Again, this is not a Christian channel, okay? If this is not your path, just don't come in the room. That goes for anybody. This is, you know, why would you even come in here if that's the vibe you're on? We're not talking about any of that stuff. We don't care. So you need to go somewhere where you can spew that garbage and indoctrination in the right platform. Because the sad thing is a lot of these Jesus freaks and these Christian fanatical fundamentalists, their God couldn't even save them from the coronavirus. But they'll turn around and say the same shit that, oh, God is doing all this as a test. And they'll, look, first and foremost, I don't buy any of that garbage, okay? How can you be the omnipotent, omniscient, omnipresent being? You don't have to test anything you so-called created and control. And there's no point in playing this whole scenario out, tricks and games, to go through this whole process to serve what point? It doesn't make any sense. Anyway, not waste our time and energy on that. But the chanting and the mantra, okay, it can have beneficial, everlasting effects on us from a medical and a spiritual perspective. Now, I'm saying that, I want to make this clear, as I've said many times before, I'm not giving medical advice because I'm not a doctor, all right? But I am telling you, it's a great suggestion for everything that's going on right now. You know, like the Om Kali Cream chant is a very powerful chant. Once you get into repetition, Om Kali Cream, Om Kali Cream, Om Kali, just when your repetition, your cadence, and you can feel, I know everybody will say when they're chanting or doing mantras, they might feel the tingling. You usually get it right here on the brow of the bridge of your nose, which is right by the pineal. Some feel a tingly sensation sometimes, and it's coming from the top of the head, which is the crown chakra opening up. Some can feel it in the other chakras. They'll feel it in the pit of their stomach or by their navel working its way up. And it can be a very blissful feeling when it works its way up to the heart chakra, when those vibrations are all working in sequence and harmony. That is activating a certain level of energy within that really you can't put into perspective how beneficial that can be when activated correctly, okay? So it's very important now in this day and time with the current situation we're dealing with. Again, as I said earlier, what you should be doing for work, I mean, how could you not know what to do right now? One, you should be looking at doing work, as I said weeks ago when this thing first popped off, to creating healing energy around yourself, your family, your place of domain, overall well, all that stuff should be in place. You should be focusing on prosperity, whereas, and here you want to know the sad thing, and not to talk shit, to gloat. But you want to know what the funny thing is? This might sound crazy, and I'm not gonna build on it too much. I'm actually doing better now with this crisis. This crisis has actually has benefited me. Now, let me make it clear. No, I'm not saying I do not wish any illness or death on any innocent people. So in that sense, it's a bad thing. But I said something earlier that probably went through the wavelength. Look at the silver lining in this. There's a market for everything. In times of what somebody labels as bad or negative, there's a silver lining there. You just need to see it. Like I said, this has been more beneficial for me. Now, look, I'd rather get back to normal for the sake of the overall health and well-being of everybody. But when you look at your inner sanctum first and then worry about the outer sanctum afterwards, when the inner is taken care of, it reverberates to your outer sanctum. And even though there might be things going on in the outer sanctum or the outer world, it always seems like what you need, the doors are opened for you. That's what magic is about. And this is why I said nobody caught it a couple of years ago, for an example, when this whole Trump thing was popping off. When people get caught up in politics and shit in the news, and I say, look, you're doing what they want you to do. You're feeding into the sensationalism. You're feeding into the hype and the fear, right? You're becoming reactive and not proactive, right? I've been saying that for the last several years for a reason. So when a time like this comes, you have the tools to be proactive and not reactive. Because now is the worst time you can be reactionary, just at a pure reaction. Okay? Can't do that right now because that's going to have detrimental consequences. When you're making decisions off of pure emotion, 9 out of 10 times, if it's not in a self-defense reaction because you're in danger, it's gonna turn out not in your favor. Trust me when I tell you. All right. So we should be focusing on the chants. We should be focusing on the mantras. We should be looking at archetypes and deities like Belial. Very important. Again, this was the book. I'm going to take some questions and finish with the chat now. Chants of Belial, Edgar Kerval. I know some of you have it. If you don't, get it. Good book. All right, so let's see what we got in the chat. I'm going to go to the top. So be patient if you just recently typed in. Be patient. I will get to you. I'm going to go up to the top. Again, infernal blessings to everybody. Just so I could skip the hellos. So if I didn't catch you earlier in the beginning and send you a greeting personally, I'm going to say infernal blessings to all. Appreciate all you guys being here today. All right. So let me look for some questions. Yeah, I think I answered Alex's question earlier. Yeah, this is a Grateful Dead steel skeleton on the shirt. What else we got? All right. So I see Scott typed in. Again, I don't know what that was in rep. I must have been talking about. Oh, setting the mood in music. Okay. I see, Pacha typed in music, tones, and frequency. Scott typed in, I was reading a vampire novel last night and was listening to dark gothic music. Sets the mood. Yeah, the mood, right? We always say this. What is the mood? The mood link connects to the vibration, right? In order to set the mood, there has to be a certain vibration to that mood. Music can do that, right? And then I see Tamiel Sabazios typed in, Michael Jackson is fantastic for me to tap into my past full of life and happiness. Yes. So I'm all sure all of us, here, let me show you how powerful, again, to the music thing. As you guys know, I love music. So I can talk about music 24/7. I love all kinds of music. But let's use the Michael Jackson thing that Tamiel Sabazios brought up. Good point. Regardless, for an example, let me show you the power of it. Regardless if you're a huge Michael Jackson fan or if you're not familiar with all of his work, let's look at the one album that for a while held the record for a while for the most top-selling album ever, his 1982 album, Thriller. I guarantee you all of us know at least one song on that album, whether it's Beat It, Billie Jean, PYT, whatever it is, Thriller. I guarantee you we all know at least one song from that album. That's probably Thriller is probably one of the most impactful albums that was ever put out. Worldwide, I'm talking about. Okay? Now I'm sure when, as Tamiel was making that statement, I'm sure he can recollect to exactly what that album brings out as far as full of life and happiness. Now, I know I can think of a lot of things in the year 1982. Let me show you how my mind works, right? 1982. There's 3 things that stick out to me when it comes, one, to movies and music. And I remember they all came out in the same year. You had Thriller, you had Rocky III, you had the movie E.T. They all came out. 3 of the biggest, because I remember that summer as it was yesterday, because I remember every day in the summer we were going to see those 2 movies. That was the only tape we were playing in the boombox throughout the day. And I remember that summer because here's a crazy thing. We used to have, back in the day in New York, we used to play wiffle ball on the driveway. Some of you guys know what wiffle ball is. If we couldn't get down to the schoolyard to play stick ball, we played wiffle ball on the driveway. And what we would do is we would take a beach chair. Let me show you this shit I was talking about earlier, how when we were kids, we would take a beach chair and put it on the handle of the garage. That was the strike zone. And if you know what a wiffle ball bat is, that yellow bat comes with the white ball with the holes in it. They used to sell them. You used to get one with the bat if you're going down to the candy store or the corner store. And then they would sell them individual in the boxes, right? For those that know what I'm talking about. And on the back of the box, it would show you how to throw a slider, right? You see the little diagrams, how to hold the wiffle ball and throw a slider, curve ball, breaking ball. So we would set up, if you would play somebody one-on-one, sometimes we'd have a 2-on-2, 3-on-3, but we would have a strike zone, and then we would make marks in the street for double, triple, home run. And we'd have these wiffle ball games or these wiffle ball tournaments with everybody on the block in the neighborhood, and everybody would be a certain team and et cetera. I remember that year because we had probably, when I say we played wiffle ball, we were probably playing 4, 5, 6 games a day. I mean, that's how we were into that shit. And during the day, we was down. Back then, you could sneak into the movie, and you could stay in the movie theaters all day. And that's what we did. We would go to the first early matinee movie. And I remember, here's a crazy thing what I remember. It was $2 to get into the movies in 1982, $2. The matinee was $1.50 or $1.75. It was like 25 or 50 cents cheaper. We'd go to the first show, and we'd stay in for 3 or 4 shows. We'd go in about 1 o'clock. Between each show, we'd come out of the movies, and usually somewhere in the center, there was arcade games. We'd have pocket full of quarters. In between movies, we'd go play the arcade games, and then we'd go catch another movie. So sometimes we'd see either the same movie 3 times, or we'd go see 2 or 3 different movies in one day. That's shit we did as kids. And sometimes before things got tightened up, one of us would go in. If we knew what theater it was playing in on this one theater, we would go in New York. One of us would go in and pay. The others would go up to the top of the steps, and we'd come in. We open the exit door and let our friends in. It's the shit we did. I mean, stuff we did, how we kept busy in the summertime. But long story short, we would see 3 movies sometimes for about $2. And then you had your little candy money. My thing was Milk Duds. And back then, the Milk Duds don't taste the same now. Everything has changed. None of that shit tastes the same. But my thing was, man, going to the movies, it was nothing like getting a box of Milk Duds and watching a movie back in the day. See, that's the shit that I miss. Those little things we miss. Yeah, and again, we got all the technology. Yeah, you can, in the comfort of your own home, everything can be live streamed. I mean, I get it. That's cool. I mean, I do appreciate it. There is times where that's very beneficial, and I enjoy it. But sometimes it's the experience of it is what's lost. And then it reminds me 82. Matter of fact, Beat Street came out in 83, the next year. Because that also was going on at that time. Breakdancing was really, even though breakdancing was out before then, but breakdancing now had become a very popular form of art form of dance. It became the newer form of the b-boy culture, right? You had movies like Beat Street, was classic. The first 2 Break-ins, awesome movies. And I remember all of that was affiliated with that. Then the Break-In crews came out. The crew that I belonged to was, we all had the parachute pants, the parachute jackets. We had our crew shirts and colors, purple. We were the United Supersonic Rockets. Purple and white. You had the sneakers to go with it. Then we would meet down at the skate rinks, whether it was in Pine Boulevard, could have been in Brooklyn, might have been out in Queens at Hot Skates. The skating rinks were being used at places to have breakdance battles, which was good at the time because a lot of the fighting stopped for a while. And instead of fighting, there was breakdance battles, right? So that whole period, I can go on, but that whole period from 82, really 82 to 85, had significant meaning to me in my childhood. And then 85 to 90 was a whole nother shit. But yeah, I could reflect back on all of that stuff when the music opens you up to that, right? The music connects you to all that, whether it's through movies, through just your favorite artist, whatever it may be. It opens you up to that. And that all ties into sound, vibration, tone, frequencies. That all connects to mantra and chanting. All that shit is linked in. And it's important we understand that because it can be used as a magical tool. All right. So Patrick says, Pete, my classic hits players right here on my channel. I'll check it out when I get a chance. Scott E. Nosferatu, the old 8-track days. Yeah, man. 8-tracks didn't last too long, neither did Betamax. Some of y'all probably don't even know what Betamax is. Betamax was before VHS tapes. They used to have Betamax machines on movies. That Betamax and 8-track were out around the same time. They didn't last. There was a cable channel before there was even cable. They're the first pay channel in New York, which most people don't probably may or may not remember, was WHT. It was a movie channel. It was a movie channel you had to pay for. That was the first pay cable movie channel. That was during the time of Betamax. Then VHS came in, right? The Betamax didn't last long. The 8-track didn't last long. But I remember one 8-track that my father had forever, Earth, Wind, and Fire. He used to play that shit forever. And we had this, it was an 8-track that it had a strap. I swear to God, I can't even make this shit up. It had a strap. It was one big speaker, and the 8-track went in on the side of it. The 8-tracks didn't last long. Them things was big to carry around. Then obviously they went to cassette. We still had the vinyl at the time, and then when the CD game came in, that started to change things drastically. But then you went from Betamax to VHS, and the same thing. Remember, it was a big deal when VCRs came out. Now I remember we had the top load JVC. I don't know if you remember the top load where it would lit. Whereas the front load always used to, sometimes those were the ones that acted up more because the tapes would get stuck. So we, at the time, man, we thought we were the Jeffersons, boy. When we got our JVC top load VCR, you can tell us shit. We thought we was coming up in the world, man. And I've talked about this before in the past. I can remember multiple times. It used to be a big deal to go down to the local video store and pick out movies. And I had got my love and appreciation for movies from my father. My father was a movie head. If I show you this man's room, he had just a room in his house that he installed shelves A to Z with movies. Literally, that's how big of a movie, but he collected movies from old Westerns to movies from back in the day to this very day. And I took most of his or some of his collection, the ones that I didn't have, took a large amount of it when he passed 2 years ago. But it used to be a big deal back then when we were kids. And I remember, especially in the wintertime on the weekend or during the night, getting in the car and driving a few blocks, going to the video store, walking around, looking for a movie, and, get excited if it was in, remember how you used to have to look behind to make sure it was available, or calling down to the video store, put your name, remember that shit? Calling down to the video store, or when you're there, hey man, take my name when this comes back in, give me a call at your house, mind you, not on your cell phone because you didn't have one back in the day. See, it's the experience of that. That used to be a big thing, getting in the car, going with my pop. And me and my pop used to go most of the time to get the movies. And it just was a big deal, and that experience is lost because it's that human interaction with family or people or loved ones that was lost. You remember back in the day, it used to be a big deal. It used to be a treat back in the day to go to White Castle or McDonald's. When you knew it was like, oh shit, we going away. I remember there was a place I used to love, and they had them only, I believe they were only in Queens and Nassau County, right on the border of Long Island and Queens. We used to have a spot. There's one still that exists, if I'm not mistaken, going more closer to Levittown in Nassau County. I think there's one still there, Chicken Delight. I don't know if everybody remembers a place called Chicken Delight. Man, let me tell you something. I could talk about it now. Their chicken and steak fries, I still can't find to this day nothing like it. Now, the one that still exists now, I've gone there when I've gone back. It's not the same. They've changed some shit. So, but we just lose that experience. Doing all those things, we lose that disconnect. That was a big deal. Then obviously it went to DVDs, and now the DVDs is kind of phasing out. The big thing now is live streaming everything. You don't even need to rent DVDs no more. So those places are shut down. because pretty much they got all these movie apps and all these other things that you could live stream all your content. So there's a good side to it. There's a bad side. The bad side is it's made us very lazy. It's made us very complacent. And it's disconnected us from our human interaction and connection with each other. And part of the problem why people even are struggling, part of that is connected to what's going on now with all this social distancing, where some people are struggling with it because they don't know how to be by themselves. All right, what else we got? Scott also talks about, I mentioned that earlier, he typed in earlier about climbing trees. That used to be a big thing when we were kids, making tree houses or clubhouses or forts, all that shit. This is what we did as kids. This is how we stayed busy. This is how we stayed creative. Now you say to these kids, go outside and play, don't even know what the fuck that is. The only thing they know what to play with is their tablet, their computer, their gaming system. That's it. Now, here, and I'm sure it's the same everywhere, now with this social distancing because of the pandemic, now all of a sudden you go outside because people have no choice. I'm seeing a lot of kids now out on their bikes here. A lot of the little kids riding big wheels. I saw a tricycle yesterday. I ain't seen a tricycle. I can't even tell you the last time I saw a little kid riding a tricycle. It's been years. You see kids out in the street playing because now they have to because they're confined to the house. So though they might have been physically going places and then didn't do anything after that, now in order to get out and do something, they got to come out. They got to be creative. But we got to get back to that to some level. All right, what else we got? Okay, Ritual Spirit says, worked with Belial once, but still unsure about the energy. I've worked with Kali many times as a destroying energy. I don't know why I'm on the fence regarding Belial energy. You're going to have to come to that conclusion. If it's could be a personal fear, could be self-created, or if something's not resonating with you rightly. But step one is at least you recognize that. Step two would be proceeding forward of how you're going to move forward. If it's not work with it at all, or figure out why you feel like that. That would be obviously a next step. Patrick's Music Central says repetition, concentration, energy, and sound is powerful magic. That's true. All right, what else we got? Tamio Sabazio says there will be a lot of unsettling energies coming through, probably because it's suppressed in the shadow. I take my time and ease it out slowly until I'm comfortable and then go out. Well, that's it. You got to come up with a formula that works for you. Mystic Moons, I think you must have typed that question in earlier. I think we kind of addressed that. Has there been any other identification development of the daemons outside of the 72 Goetia? Yes, due to the fact that they predate what we know as the Goetia. And I even used, for an example, I was talking about Azazel and Samael, right? Or even the deity Baal. That's a good one to kind of answer to that question. Why Baal became so synonymous with the Phoenicians and the Canaanites in the Bible, because they tapped into that in Sumerian culture. So you will find them scattered about in other cultures that predate it. It's just as you get down during the time of King Solomon's temple, where the Goetia become more organized, this is where the structure began. This is where people started identifying with it via Christianity. So no, you won't find them as a whole, as a group that you find them likened to the lesser seal of Solomon. That's something that was grafted through those religious schools of Hebrew mysticism. But you can find a multitude of them scattered about. And when you're talking about a path like the Draconian path, where you'll find most of them that predate and go back before all of that shit. When you talk about spiritual systems as Leviathan, and working with what we call the Draconian Gnosis, that goes back to that primordial chaotic energy. That goes back when we're dealing with the whether you call it, the science of Leviathan and Tiamat. When you put or do a historical trace onto that, you're going back many, many years prior to what we know as religion, or connecting it to the lesser keys of Solomon. But can you find them all grouped as a whole, the 72 and some other pantheon? No, you really can't. You can when you go back to, there's another spiritual system in Heka and Egyptian black magic called the 72 Companions of Set. And some also believe that that's really where it got its origin. And that predates, because that goes back prior to the 21st and 22nd dynasty of ancient Egypt. And the 22 Companions of Set, and the one that led that revolt, and I was talking about that in the Patreon class, was Sekhmet. She led that revolt. And some synchronize the 72 Companions of Set with the 72 Goetia. So there's connection prior to it for sure, but you won't find them all as a whole, how that concept is presented in the Lesser Key of Solomon, but you can find them scattered about, which proves that this is something that was grafted after the fact. And that's why people are always connecting with it through the Lesser Key of Solomon. And I've been saying for years, it goes back fine. And I think what the important thing is, because we can go back, and I'm just speaking now in general, but I think what the important thing, what I see that happens on a lot of other conscious platforms, which we don't really or should not get caught up in. When you're debating the historicity of things, the historical data, it could be a lot of back and forth. And I think sometimes too much attention is paid on that. I think the more important thing we need to focus on as adepts and magicians, what they represent, what the energy is involved. And as I said earlier in the beginning of the video, how we can connect what they represent to the spiritual work that we're doing. I think that's the most important thing, because that will manifest your personal connection. Because it's okay to, as a student and a seeker, to gain that knowledge, that's fine. But I always say at the end of the day, really, what is that going to do for you other than the fact, put a little more know-how in the think tank? And that's cool. But I think what we need to really focus on, if we're, let's say for in this example, if we're working with the Goetia, what they represent. But it's a good question. So hopefully that helps. Lacquer Black says, what's the connection with the Torah and transgenders? I'm not really sure I understand your question. Maybe it could be a little more specific. Connecting it in what way? What I'm saying is, there something you read or heard, something that's a reference point that maybe I'm familiar with, or maybe I'm not. So maybe you'll type something in later down. I'm not really sure the context of your question, so I don't really know how to answer that, and I don't want to answer it the wrong way. So maybe you can add a little more down if you are still here, and then we can see what we have, okay? So what else do we have? Now, I will say one thing. Well, I'll wait till you get down, but I've always mentioned in ancient Egypt, Akhenaten. He was what we call transgender, hermaphrodite. And this is why you'll see depictions of and illustrations of Akhenaten. He has a very curvaceous body from the bottom. And he was considered hermaphrodite. He had dual sex organs. Whether you want to classify that as officially as transgender, I've always talked about hermaphrodites and hermaphrodites. When you go back and you read a lot of the ancient texts, these were the first beings that personified on the planet Earth. In some cultures, they referred to as gateway keepers. So I'm not going to keep speculating, but we'll see if you type something more. There is a connection with stuff like that, but I'm not sure if you type something like that. All right. Yeah, Blade of Astoreth brings up a good point. Remember, Tiamat's slaughter or death wasn't really her physical death, because from her death was birth, as Blade of Astoreth puts in there, as they refer to as the chaotic or chaos demons, which were her children, right? So there's a lot of hidden science in those grimoires. And again, those grimoires, predate monotheism, be it Islam, Christianity, and Judaism. You will find from those ancient grimoires and texts, be it the Enuma Elish, the Atra Hasis, even the flood story can be found in the Atra Hasis, with a being or a character called Utnapishtim. And the flood, as it's recorded in there, is identical to the Noah story in the Bible. And we know that the Sumerian text predates the biblical Genesis text by thousands of years. So it's obvious one can say the Bible writers were very influenced by that story. But here's the science of where that really comes from. If you study your Bible history, the group of people who later referred to themselves as the 12 tribes of Israel, right, you will find during the period, if you read the book of Ezra, and I've told people to research this in the past, you will find out that the whole story of Ezra is about the children of Israel coming out of captivity up under Nebuchadnezzar. I can never say his name, sorry. When they were in captivity, and here's the thing, the captivity that these so-called ancient Hebrews were in ancient Samaria wasn't a slave imprisonment captivity. How do you know that? Because when they were given their freedom to leave, right, not everybody left with Ezra to go back to Jerusalem. That's when you see the second rebuilding of Solomon's temple, right? There were many so-called ancient Hebrews who stayed in Samaria. But what you need to understand about their history, which kind of ties into what we're talking about, when they came out of captivity from Babylon or ancient Samaria up under Nebuchadnezzar, they came back into Jerusalem, rebuilt Solomon's temple, and this is when the first Torahs were started to be compiled, the Torahs that we read today. And they were highly influenced in that captivity by the Babylonian text. I've mentioned this before, the six-pointed star can be found in the Babylonian temples of Hammurabi, Nebuchadnezzar, and during the times of Babylon before the ancient Jews or Hebrews used it. So they took that star on the creation story in the Babylonian temples. That's how it got grafted into what we know as Judaism. Then they came back, and I said they started to put their Torah, what we know as the Bible, or the first parts of it, the Torah together. And this is where they got their creation story. You need to know your history. So my whole thing is a lot of people don't really know the history of that. We need to, especially when we're talking about a topic like this, because there's a connection there. There's a connection there to give us a deeper understanding so we can be able to decipher, you know, what's what when we're talking about this, because this is where a lot of the influence comes in. So that's where your Bible influence comes in. And that one reference point there is where you see where a lot of that influence came in, right? And then you can see where the connection with the lesser seal of Solomon would have played its part in the rebuilding of the temple. Now it's funny because there's basically masonry is built around all of those mysteries. The building of Solomon's temple. That's basically what Freemasonry or the secrets are built on, right? All right. What else we got? Amazing Nene, what's going on? Not sure if you're still in here. What else you got? Lacquer. I'm not sure what the hell that was. I must have missed something. Soulpour777 says, hello, could you give examples of what changes come about by doing goddess Durga mantras? Now, I did a whole video on working with Kali Durga, working with the deity. There's an aspect of Durga that works with Kali, and it's a very, very, very powerful energy. I actually did a video on it in the archive. I suggest if you get time, seek it out. It's called Working with Kali Durga, something like that. It's Kali Durga in the title. You know it's working simply when you're working with energy like that, dealing with Durga, whether it's with Kali or not. All of those energies are destructive in the sense it's usually followed by reconstructions. How you know it's working, some people don't look at. Sometimes, again, as I mentioned before, your life can be getting turned upside down. You have to be careful when you access Durga energy. We're talking about through the Dravidian or the Hindu system now, because those are road clearing energies. And when you activate those energies, sometimes, you know, what we have, there's preconceived notions of change we want is not change we need. So somebody, for an example, this is how you know it's working. And some people confuse this for it going awry or not working. For an example, somebody might set out to do work with those archetypes for finances, right? And in that process, something goes bad with their job or something goes bad with their spouse, their boyfriend or their girlfriend. Because what the energy is trying to tell you, part of your financial problem is you got that dead weight in your relationship that's not carrying their weight. So if you're activating the energy for financial prosperity, it's going to remove out of your path what's in the way that's blocking. And then sometimes you may not be looking at that. So you think, oh, this shit's not working. It's caused more problems. But how you know it's overall working is real simple. Whatever you petitioned the ritual for, if you don't see improvement in that area, there's something deeper at play. So if you're doing work for finances, if you're doing work to repair relationships, if you're doing love or spell work, and it's not working, there's another key factor there subconsciously that's blocking that work from manifesting. Because you might be focusing on love and spell work, but your money's all fucked up. So you can't get the money to manifest because that's a bigger issue. So sometimes the energy might attack that. Or it won't work on what you're petitioning for because that needs to be addressed first. So there could be a multitude of possibilities of why it's not working. You need, step one, when you feel like something's not working, if that's the case, you need to analyze, one, the work that I did just right now, is that of the utmost importance in my life right now that needs to be addressed? If the answer is no, then you need to ask yourself, well, then what is? And if other things come up, then those are the things you need to be attacking first. So I use this. People will come on this path. I've said this many times over the years. People will come on this path to do money magic and shit. But they got family issues and personal issues and traumas that they haven't even addressed. But they want to jump right in and start doing rituals for money and shit. It's not going to work. You must do shadow work and deal with your bullshit first before you can even venture in those areas to have consistent success. I'm not saying you ain't gonna have moments or bouts of success with it, but that poses another problem for people who I always get emails. Why do I get just moments of results or bouts of results? That's usually the reason why. So I would really analyze, and I'm speaking this now to everybody, analyze the work you're doing. And is it of the utmost importance of what's going on in your life right now? That's usually will lead you or push you in the right direction. All right. What else we got? Yeah, Blade of Astor. That Grimoire of Tiamat by Asenath Mason. That's no joke. The dream work in there is off the chain. And I'd recommend anybody. I know some of you over the last couple of years have mentioned that you have done work out of that book. That's a book that's no joke. That is working with intense. That's a wrathful, vengeful, very violent, intense aspect of Tiamat. But if anybody is really wants to get, straight up, no chaser, real deal of working with Tiamat, Leviathan, and that whole aspect, that's definitely the book. TD Jakes. Yeah, TD Jakes, the fat frog. Yeah, Jim Baker. So it was Jim Baker. I couldn't get his name. Yeah, that motherfucker's crazy, man. He back on the scene claiming he has some holy water that could heal coronavirus. And people were buying that shit. That's sad. People were really buying that shit. That's the crazy thing. Like, what the fuck, man? Even in a time of something serious, you got people out there still trying to take advantage of people. It's fucking nuts. There was another dude. He a creepy ass dude, man. He used to have some miracle water. Oh, what's his name? He's a weird, creepy ass dude. Hold on, it's coming. Oh, Reverend Peter Popoff. First of all, the name killing me, dude. Who would trust somebody with the name Reverend Peter Popoff? I've talked about him, I think, in the past videos going a little while back. He claims he got some miracle water, and then everybody, he's this weird, creepy white dude, and most of his people are. He's always got an all black congregation, and they're always promoting his shit on BET or TV One, always black channels, and he just gets these ignorant ass people, who speak Ebonics or they can't articulate themselves, and they talk about how they got his miracle water and their mortgage got paid. I'm just like, man, shit's crazy that we're still even dealing with shit like that in 2020. He's another character you need to check out. He's got a hustle, but this Jim Baker cat popped back up, and he got warned by I don't know if it was the FBI or the state police, or it was something. You could Google the article. And they're about to lock his ass up in jail. They told him he needed to stop selling that water, making that claim, because it's illegal. So it just goes to show you the length people will go, even in a time like this, to try to run a hustle on somebody. But at the same token, I must say, you got to be an idiot if you fall for that. I can't really sympathize with you if you're stupid enough to believe some nonsense like that. There's some fucking water. Anyway. You get the point. What else we got? Yeah, we got rid of that dude. We had some dude in here earlier, Matt Davis. He was holy sanctified, I guess. I don't understand why. It just go to show you that people that come in to these platforms, and I've made it clear many times, it's not a religious platform. And I'm going to waste my time and argue debating with you. Those that know me in the past, I mean, believe me, you don't want that. You don't want that smoke, as they say, right? You don't want that energy. But I'm not going to let stop with that. I'm not going to let people come in here and distract. I just don't. It kills me that people who are so in disagreement with something would stay for that long, because it goes to show you that whatever we saying striking a nerve. And then if I could at least get you to think, that's all my job is, to get you to think, whether you agree with me or not. As long as I can get you to think, and if it incites some reaction out of you, good or bad, I've done my job, because I've at least incited you to think or look at another alternative or perspective or possibility. All right, talked about the 5G and the one current, so I'm not going to get too much more into that. 5G is a hustle, all bullshit. So I think we talked about that. I'm not going to revisit all that. I see they censoring, not even on, they censoring. I don't know, for those of you that have a YouTube channel, and when this shit first broke out, you see the message on your page now when you're uploading content. They are screening anything in relation to coronavirus or 5G, any of that stuff that you connect to coronavirus, and they're letting you know right at the top. Go to your YouTube studio when you upload your videos, and it tells you that they have the right, if they feel any content to COVID-19 is not productive, they're going to remove it. Tells you right there. And I noticed, I've seen people complaining that they've done videos on this and they've removed it. But they're telling you, anybody has a YouTube channel, you know what I'm talking about. So right when I'm done with this video and I go to my YouTube studio to just make a couple quick edits and then upload it, there's a message right at the top that tells you that. So yeah, they're doing that right here. They're not just removing it. They're doing it right here on YouTube. They're doing it on all other platforms on the internet, but they're doing it right here too. What else we got? Mystic Moon says, is Belial similar to the Sphinx in terms of the guardian of the abyss? I mean, there's a connection there. You can make that personal, synchronized connection, and if that's the way you connect with it, and it works of significance for you, yes. Is there some documented evidence of that? No, but that's irrelevant. But can you see the connection and the synchronization and the possibility? I say most definitely yes. So for sure, you can make that connection. But the only thing that's important is if you feel that you've made that personal connection and you've connected the two and it holds some level of significance to you, then yes, most definitely. What else we got? What is Gage? She said, you can get stuck thinking about your preconceived notion instead of focusing on the work itself. Yes, it's very important. That's why I say, the books and the study is all the stuff you're supposed to do prior. So you're not worrying about that when you're in the chamber. And I'm not talking about if you're doing a ritual and you're using an excerpt from a book, but you should already have the understanding of that in your mind. It's okay to use books, whether you're using them in rituals or whether you're using them in study, but you should always add your personal flair and stamp on the work. And the important thing of doing that is when you can't add your personal stamp or flair onto the work if you don't understand it. So that's what I mean when I say the books can't help you in the chamber. I'm not saying you can't bring a book in the chamber to use an invocation or something. I do that all the time, but I've already have my understanding. I'm not focused on the particulars or getting caught up. I've already come to the conclusion of my personal understanding and how this is going to work for me in this particular ritual. So that all should be done. That's what I mean. I'm saying literally the information or the book itself as a whole really can't help you when you're in the ritual chamber. Because if you haven't come and assimilated the understanding of that information, then it's pointless. All right, what else we got? Um, what else? Yeah, and I actually use that channel too for mantras. I see somebody earlier, you guys were talking about uh, Just I 3, the Lilith N. I've used that chant too. There's a channel on YouTube called Saintania, or Satania. You see it typed in there by Gage. The whole channel has chamber music, and it has mantra music for a lot of the archetypes that we're talking about. Matter of fact, I just recently posted a Santa Muerte short clip on my Instagram page, and I used that mantra came from that channel. So yeah, there's a lot of good. If you're looking for ritual chamber music or mantras for these deities, go to that Satania page on YouTube. It's a good, really good page. What else we got? Damn, hold on, shit skipped. Damn, hold on. Okay, here we go. Looking for questions. Okay. Yeah, and it's true. What Posh was saying here, what I was talking about with the technology. I mean, again, don't get me wrong. There's such benefits to it, convenience, and with the digital libraries of and the catalogs they got out there and the digital platforms, which I know that's the eventual goal to turn everything from analog to digital. That's the goal, and that's what they're trying to do. And that has something to do also with the 5G technology, because a lot of that deals with these Wi-Fi systems, et cetera. But you get the point. But yeah, it just takes away a lot of things. There's an upside and a downside. Yeah, Damien, you were born in '88. Okay, I'm born in '71. And you bring up, man, block parties was the shit. One of the big things, 4th of July in my neighborhood was huge. In New York, you got to get the little permit from the city. We used to put the barricades up. Man, I miss the big wheel races, man. We used to have big wheel races. Oh, man. Running races. We used to race father-son softball game, because at the corner of my block, if you went right to the corner, there was a baseball field called Harris Field where we all played ball. And we'd have every year, 4th of July was huge in my neighborhood. I couldn't wait for that shit. It was all day, crack in the morning. And then obviously the huge fireworks show. We had the one dude. I mean, everybody had fireworks on the block, but there was that one dude. I remember Matt. And Matt would put on a show every fucking year. I mean, better than some of the shit you would see. I mean, we had everything, man. And then, just being out there all day, having the watermelon, the hot dogs, the hamburgers, oh man, it was just that shit is gone, man. I mean, we got to realize face to face, it's gone, unfortunately. And then a lot of the technology is taking that away. A lot of the interactions is taking that away. You just don't feel the need for that no more. And it's sad. I mean, I know, look, we all, like I said earlier, our parents were doing the same thing, reminiscing when their generation started to change. But guess what? We're now at that stage, some of us. We're seeing all that gone. Block parties was huge, man. Most of the time we did it 4th of July. It was done some other time, sometimes a birthday celebration, or sometimes people in the summertime would just have a block party just for no reason, just for the fact of partying. And man, you had the DJ out there playing the music. Oh man, I remember that time, man, in the 80s, the girls, and remember when the biker shorts first came out? Yeah, damn. Man, we used to have fun with that shit, man. And we just be up and down the block all day. I mean, I'm talking about that shit would start in the morning and the run go late night to the early next morning. You know, and I'm talking about the adults would come with the kegs of beer, not just the cases of beer. And man, this one's playing cards, this one's playing dominoes. Kids is riding the fucking big wheels, kids running around, doing all types of shit, man. To me, it was a better, simpler time. And I'm sure our parents were saying the same shit, vice versa. My heart goes out to what the future holds for these young kids. I've always said, look, we all got our issues growing up. We all went through our shit. I can't complain about my childhood. I had a great childhood. Not saying it was void of problems, but I was fortunate. As I mentioned before in the past, I was raised with my parents in my household. My parents stayed married to the very end. I know a lot of us came up in single parent households or vice versa. I was fortunate. I loved the era of going to middle school and high school, the best years of my life. If I could go back, if somebody said you can go on a time warp and go back, where would you go? That's probably where I would go. That was the best time of my life. My 4 years in high school, I had the most, man, and then probably the first 3 to 4 years out of high school, because I immediately came out of high school, and my best friend, who I told you about, passed away. We graduated high school together. Immediately, a couple months after graduating high school, I moved out of my house, got my own apartment with my boy, and I never looked back. And them first couple years out of high school, you talk about, my God. I'd be telling you some stuff. Stop. But those 8 to 10 year period, I would say from 1989 to probably the year 1999. No, actually, let me go further back. 85 to 95, roughly, give or take. And then tapping into these different schools of man, look, when you were young and vibrant back then, you had a care in the world, man, and always had money in your pocket. Because back then, I was one of the smart ones. I got 2 kids. That's it. I wasn't one of them dumb ones that went out there and got girls pregnant and had a whole bunch of kids and couldn't enjoy life. So I was never strapped down. Always had money in my pocket. Always out there doing my thing. Was always out there living it up. Eating at the best places. Going to all the spots. It's all over the city. Back then, 42nd Street, before it became Disney, those that are from New York, you know what I'm about to talk about. Before Giuliani came in and turned that shit into Disney World 3, 40 Deuce used to be the spot. We used to come from every borough to go shoot pool there and watch the karate flicks. It had a lot of adult theaters there, strip clubs, and all that shit was taken out when Giuliani came into office. He cleaned all that shit up, and that's not now what you see is the byproduct of that. But that was the spot back in the day. Everybody would come from all over the different boroughs and hang out on the 40 Deuce because it was something. There was clubs over there. There was strip clubs, adult theaters. There was movie theaters. There was pool halls, video arcade. Arcades were big back then in pool halls. That's what we did on the weekends. And we just hung out. All that shit's gone though. You know what I mean? Now everything is But yeah, you bring up a lot of fun times there, Damien. Hold on, staying. Okay. A lot of fun times, man. I miss the block parties, man. It was a great time. Every time I think about them 80 periods there, man, oh, man, summers. Baseball. The Mets were big. Talking about the era of Dwight Gooden. I was a Yankees fan. Don Mattingly, Dave Winfield. That time in the mid to late 80s, the Yankees and Mets were neck and neck. The Mets were probably a little bit better. The Yankees were good, but they always were in a tougher division and always fell short. Still won even sometimes won more games than the Mets. But I remember that because in my neighborhood, everybody was Met fans. My dad grew up a Met fan. He was a Brooklyn Dodgers fan because he grew up in Brooklyn. But when the Dodgers left Brooklyn, in 1962, he switched to the Mets. So me and him used to always have fun. I just grew up a hardcore Yankee fan. I just turned on the TV one day and that's it. But where I grew up in my neighborhood, everybody I was a Yankees fan. They were all Met fans. I was a New York Giants fan. They were all Jet fans. Everybody pretty much was Knicks fans. And then with hockey, I was a Rangers fan, and everybody was Islander fans. That side of New York, because I grew up on a part of Queens that was closer to Nassau County and Long Island. So everybody on that side of town in Queens, near the Grand Central and the Southern State Parkway, it was right over by Shea. So at that time, remember the Jets used to play at Shea Stadium before the Jets and Giants were playing at the Meadowlands. Remember the Jets shared Shea Stadium with the Mets. So usually if you was a Met fan, you was a Jet fan. That's just how it worked. But I didn't care. I didn't root for neither the Mets or the Jets. It was Yankees and Giants from day one. Obviously to this day, right? But yeah, man, good times. But you know what? The beauty of it is you still got those memories enlarged in the subconscious, and you could always time travel. And the music, you could pop that music on anytime that connects you to that area, and guess what? You could go right back to that barbecue. You can go right back to that father-son softball game. Anytime I want to see my father or my mother in their glory, I can go back to those moments during Christmas time. Because I can tell you this, and why Christmas has more of a symbolic, significant meaning to me. Fuck all that. People want to get all pro-black conscious bullshit about it. I don't care about none of that shit. There's strong family connection energies to me with Christmas. And it was the best time of the year for my family, especially my mother. My mother loved Christmas. So when that time of the year comes for me, it's important to me because there's a strong family connection aspect to it. And that's why I love it. I don't sit here and debate Santa Claus and where it came from. And fuck all that. How old are we? I don't care. I know it's not real. I know it's mythological, but ain't that what magic is? Taking something subjective and making it a reality, right? Don't get me started on the Christmas now. Don't fuck with my Christmas stuff. But I love Christmas time. Best time of the year. Just the energy, man. Just if you know how to tap into that shit, man. Just talking about it making me longing for some goddamn Christmas. But yeah. What else we got? Listen. If I show you my cassette collection that I still have stored in tubs in my garage, I probably still have over 500 to 600 cassettes. Because remember when the vinyl was still in, there was a period where vinyl and cassette was in simultaneously before they faded the vinyl out. So we were big at cassettes when we would walk around. I mean, we in the wintertime. Y'all remember the big boom box with the equalizer on it? Kind of like the one you see on the first LL Cool J album, Radio. Had the equalizer with the lights. We carried that boombox everywhere we went when we were kids and walked, and tapes. So we either had tapes we bought, or a lot of the tapes we carried, though, we would record on the weekend, the Rap Attack. Because remember on WBLS, you had Molly Mall and Mr. Magic, then you had DJ Red Alert on 98.7 Kiss FM. And the only time we could get our fix for hip hop was the Rap Attack shows on the weekends. And they only played hip hop on Friday and Saturday nights. And I believe it was 8 to 12 or 8 to 1. That's the only time you didn't really hear hip hop. Pretty much you didn't hear. Like now, I don't even call that shit hip hop or rap, but how now you so-called hear hip hop is mainstream now. They said back then it wouldn't last. It was a fad, but look, that wasn't right. But back then in the 80s, you didn't hear. They didn't play rap on regular mainstream radio. You only heard pop and R&B. You didn't hear hip hop. And that's the only time we heard it. So what we would do on the weekends, remember, I'm sure they still sell them, I think. We'd get the big pack of blank tapes, like the 120-minute joints. We'd get the one that had the most on it. And all we would do is just pop a tape in, and we would record the Rap Attack shows. And then during the week, we had our rap. So before, we didn't have to wait until Friday or Saturday night to get our fix. And all throughout the week, or if we had house parties or whatever in the summertime, we had the Rap Attack. And we just put in the mixtapes or the tapes that we recorded off of WBLS and Kiss FM. WBLI out of Long Island, which most people don't remember or may not remember, before Public Enemy, Chuck D and Flavor Flav had shows on there that they hosted. WBLI was a college radio station out of Long Island that was broadcasted out of Malloy College, where you could get a lot of good underground hip hop back then, which most people don't even know. I know because I grew up in that area. That was big because I grew up right on the border of Queens and Long Island. And Public Enemy was from Roosevelt, Long Island. And Malloy College is in Rockville Center. Actually, my brother-in-law, my second older sister's husband, he's the school superintendent. He works out of Malloy College. So I'm very familiar with it. It's actually a pretty good school. So there's a lot of history there. a lot of history, but that's what we did, man, with the cassettes, man. We get the blank tapes and we would just, or the other thing we would do is we'd get the vinyl break beats and we record our freestyles. We put on, before, this shit you see today, that ain't DJs you see today with that goddamn laptop and them two little, no, back then you had two SP1200s, you had a mixer, you had two SP12s and your techniques, two turntables, and you would either run beats through the 808 or the SP12s, or sometimes you just take a break beat and we would just repetitively break beat and we would record it and we would just do freestyles over it. I still have tapes of that shit, literally. When I tell you I got tapes, I need to play that shit one time, which I never really went into, but back then, yeah, we had a little group, shot some demos, did some shows. I think I mentioned it before. I still got all the old demo tapes. And I can tell you some of the production on there, some of the production I did on that tape there, and then not stroking my own horn, but it sounds better than some of the garbage that's coming out now. But I used to be, M1 Korgs, SP12s, 808s. I used to know how to run 24 tracks. I know that's older stuff, but I did all that shit. Mixed all that stuff down. Was very familiar with that when that was the stuff they were using. But the DJ at that time, shit, there's no real DJs right now. No new real DJs. That ain't running program through a computer and then turning them. That's not DJing, man. That's a bunch of bullshit. Well, what's that other dumb bimbo? She trying to feed off. What's that guy? That crazy nasty skanky looking chick, Paris Hilton. She got a house gig, or had a house gig DJing in Las Vegas. What the fuck she know about DJing? See, that's what I'm saying. It's like, to me, it's a disrespect to the art form, because you're a popular celebrity and really your career, you're not popular anymore. Now you got a house residency DJing at some club in Las Vegas. What the fuck she know about DJing? And all it is you got a laptop, a computer, and you're hitting buttons. I see a question here. I quote out the corner. I didn't have a DJ name. I didn't DJ. I rapped. It was Lyrical Lord MB. MB was my initials. My other nickname they used to call me on some tracks was LL Feet, because I got big ass feet, size 13. So when I stood to the side, I used to look like an L. It was a joke. So on some of my crew shirts, they put LL Feet. The name of the group that we had, it was two groups we had. The first group that we had was called One Nation. I still have the demos. And then it was Disciples of the Lamb when we got more conscious. Actually, we were in Rap Sheet. I still have the edition of Rap Sheet. In 1993, we made Unsigned Hype in Rap Sheet. I'll pull some of that stuff out for you guys one day and play it. I saved remember Rap Sheet? I don't know if you guys, I'm dating myself now, not the source. Remember Rap Sheet? It was a newspaper that folded in half and then you'd have to fold it open. And it was a big ass newspaper. Anybody know what I'm talking about? Type in if you know, probably I might date myself. It was popular in the 90s and they had a section in there called Unsigned Hype. Kind of like the Source used to do. MC Bigfoot. They used to call me LL Feet because if I stood sideways, it was two L's. My feet would look like two L's. I mean, my sneakers, because when I was smaller then and skinnier, and when I wasn't as shorter, I always used to get clowned on my feet. Like, you got some big ass fucking feet. But I don't know if you guys know, if anybody's familiar with Rap Sheet. You got to be an older head to know that. Rap Sheet was like the second biggest thing at that time with the Source. And we had, because we did some local stuff. We got on a local label out of New York called Zeracody Records. And Tony Bonilla, who you guys, he produced, which a song you guys might be familiar with, Ya Kid K, Pump Up the Jam. I'm sure you guys might remember that song was popular in the early 90s. Pump up the jam, pump it up. Well, he started a small label with this dude, Ian Starr. I can't even make this shit up. We got signed to that label, literally. Now, they were popular in the Northeast region. They were doing shit in New York, Philly. They were doing stuff in Boston, DC, Rhode Island. They had launched the label. It was making some noise in the Northeast, and they were working there. I think the furthest they got south was Virginia, but it was a developing label. This dude, Ian Starr, was doing freestyle music. He was the other partner on the label. This is a true fucking story. Ian Starr did freestyle music like Stevie B. I don't know if you guys know who Stevie B is. Party Your Body, man. That's freestyle music, which was popular during that period. I still listen. I like sometimes I get in a freestyle music mood myself. Zeracody Records. We used to go to a place in Manhattan. It was called RPBC. It was in Midtown Manhattan. I think it was 30-something Street. Record Pool Business Center. That's what RPBC stood for. And RPBC was a place where new artists can go play their track, either perform it live or just play it. And we got recognized at RPBC one time in Midtown Manhattan by Zeracody Records. They wound up signing us. Now, back then, what people don't realize, places like 4th and Broadway, Profile Records, Warner Brothers, you could literally walk into the offices and request to see the A&R, and they would sit down there with you to play your demo tape. You could do that back in the day. Can't do that now. That doesn't exist. We used to physically go to all the major record labels in Manhattan and shop our demo tape. Literally, we would just walk in with our bio, pictures, our demo, and sometimes we would be able to get like what they called showcases just to open up for somebody. You didn't get paid, but it was just to see if you could get some recognition. But RPBC was something that was kind of the bridge to that. Well, anyway, that's how Zeracody Records had discovered. It was me and my partner that had committed suicide, my boy Nafish. I'll bring that stuff out. I'll play a couple tracks for that so you guys get a kick out of it. Because I still got all that. I saved it. But anyway, we made a little bit of noise, but here's where we stopped. And the question always of people, now I'm going back to the very early 90s, 90 to 92-ish, 93. When we started to get into develop more about spirituality, we just grafted away from it. It wasn't, at that time we got involved with certain schools of consciousness that we just became committed to. We still were doing the rap and the music thing, but sometimes life throws other things at you. But this dude Ian Starr, anyway, we signed the record contract, and we actually got to the point where we designed the album cover, and this is a true story. Me and Nafish are headed up, and they were on the Lower East Side near Delancey and Essex is where they had their office and their studio. We get on the J train. We head down to Delancey and Essex. And because we wanted to design, we wanted to come up with the concepts or the artwork on the cover of the album because we wanted to have themes that was connecting to the music and the stuff that we wrote. And we did all of our own music. We came up with the samples and the beats, and then obviously the engine, when we made tracks, we would get assistance with it. So we come into the office. I'll never forget this. We come into the office. We had the album cover and the concepts. Nafish was good drawing. He had skills. I can't draw worth shit. So we have the sketch pad. We come into the office. We got the whole album cover. We're amped up, ready to go. So I never forget. We come into the office. We go up the flight of stairs. We open the door. It's the office. The studio is empty. And I turn and I look and I see Tony standing there, just like gazing out into the window. Well, this dude Ian was a crackhead. He wound up taking all the studio equipment, everything he can get his hands on. He took everything and fled. And he sold everything. Kind of fucked up. He had a crack habit. He wound up resurfacing about maybe 6 months to a year later, cracked out. Tony saw him somewhere on the Lower East Side near Canal Street. He was about $120. Ian Starr, you might be able to Google him. I don't know if anything comes up on him. He was a freestyle artist. Ian Starr was big, cut. He looked like one of the dudes in Full Force. He had the curl and everything. He had that he had Jerry curl, but he had like the wet, soft curl. You know what I mean? And he was big. He looked like one of them Full Force motherfuckers. He used to wear fucking tight jeans, the boots, and the fucking spike. But he got cracked out. He got addicted. He went down to like $1 and change. By that time it was a wrap. See what we got over here. I did. As far as interaction, Eric B and Rakim, yes, because they were one of my motivating reasons why I got into the 5% Nation at the time. That blew me away when I saw Rakim. There's 2 video shoots that I was actually on the set there. Brother's Gonna Work It Out by Public Enemy. That was shot out in Long Beach, in Long Island. We were just in the crew portions of the video, just jumping around. There's a mod. I don't know if you can notice it. I was on that video shoot with Public Enemy, Flavor Flav. Actually, there's a place in Long Island called Dairy Barn that Flavor Flav used to always go through. He used to have a purple Corvette, and he used to always drive through to pick up his beer and shit. Well, a lot of people don't know about Flav. Flav was never really on that conscious tip. A lot of people don't know that. I mean, you know that now, but they didn't know that back then. So a lot of those Long Island rappers, I did. EPMD, Eric B. and Rakim, Public Enemy, Keith Murray, another rapper out of Long Island that I made a connection with. What's his name? Your mom's in my business. He was down. They were down with EPMD. Oh, damn. K Solo. I'm sorry, I was drawing a blank. K Solo. He was from Long Island. Biz Markie. Actually, with Biz Markie, which most people don't realize with Biz Markie, we used to see Biz Markie, all of us, White Castle and West Hempstead, because Biz Markie was from Long Island. And they used to do a lot of shows out in the Queens and the Long Island clubs. And afterwards, there was a White Castle that used to be close by there. And if you went there after hours, we used to do things back then called snapping, right? Where everybody would go in there late at night, get White Castle, sit at the table, and they had snap contests, snapping on your moms or your personal shit. So there was I sat and witnessed many snap battles with Biz. Biz Markie was good at that. So I did have a lot of Lord Finesse. They were from Queens, but they used to be out on Long Island and do a lot of shows out there. A lot of the Long Island and Queens rappers, yes, because that's where I grew up. Big Daddy Kane, I only seen him one time. Big Daddy Kane, well, I saw him perform a couple of times. The Raising Hell tour, I saw him in Latin Quarters. I see him perform there a couple of times at Latin Quarters. So you see a lot of them. Kid and Play a couple of times. Met Kid and Play a couple of times at Union Square. That was a big thing back in the day, Union Square, Empire Boulevard in Brooklyn. So yeah, a lot of things were more Heavy D. Though he was from Yonkers, but more so a lot of the Long Island rappers. Again, EPMD, Rakim. Never met Cool G Rap, but always admired Cool G Rap. Cool G Rap was one of my favorite rappers from that area. That first album's a classic. The Butcher Shop is off the chain, one of my favorite songs. So the good old days, man. So yeah, we did. We fucked around with the music thing. That was one of our aspirations. I guess it just wasn't supposed to be. That's all. What else we got? Yeah, WHT, believe it or not. If those ain't familiar with WHT, believe it or not. Yeah, it's good to have the physical product. Yeah, my uncle, that's how my uncle had WHT. Again, that was the first pay movie channel, which most people don't know. I remember we used to go to his house to watch it, right? He was the first one to have a Betamax before the VHS. It's crazy. Yeah. Al Green 8-track. Yeah, just looking at it, that's powerful. Just looking at it can give you good positive memories. Again, the one 8-track my father never threw out was Earth, Wind, and Fire. Can't remember which album because I know they had a bunch. But he had an Earth, Wind, and Fire 8-track. He never threw that shit out. And he kept the 8-track. I don't know why. I told you, we had one fucking thing. It looked like a square, big-ass speaker with a big-ass, looked like a kid's toy, fat-ass buttons on the top, and then the 8-track went in on the side. It was, man. It had some good sound, though, I'll tell you that. 8-track. God damn. What else we got? Mystic Moon says, regarding sound, is there a connection between the demon seals and sound frequency? I've noticed a few of the seals are similar to the circles of the fifth. Yes, there is a connection. You will find the sound and the vibration. There's actually a connection with them with all of them, especially when you're doing telepathic work. Because, for an example, I just did a recent working with the lower gates and calling the sacred name, saying, like, for instance, Ba Shem Ha Lilith, right? In the name of Lilith. And then there's also usually a phrase that follows it up, like open the gates or whatever. You'll find, again, when you get in cadence, when you get in rhythm, when the vibration picks up its intensity, okay, there is a connection. And there are a connection with the seals, because Some of those chants or open the seals or excuse me, connect with that particular demon, spirit, or archetype, whatever you want to call it. So yes, there is a connection. And sound, and remember, sound, vibration, and frequency is very important for invocation and what we call in Egyptian Heka black magic performative utterance. There's got to be passion in your invocations when you are putting an invocation or evocation out there. We don't want to sound like like robots. Hell, you got to be some passion, some fire, some fury in it. That's going to transition into your sounds, your vibrations, and your frequency. So there is a connection, most definitely. Yes, and as far as what some would label the positive and negative currents of those chants, like some with the telepathic, they're told to do them in a very low, audible tone, say them very low and vibrate them very low, because the vibration and the frequency and the connection with some of them determines what aspect you are invoking of them. But then, for an example, with Lilith, there's some that you have to be more upbeat, vocal, and louder, because the tones and the aspects of them that dwell within those tones or realms, that's how you activate them via the sound, the vibration, and the frequency. Because remember, in essence, this is why I say you're activating energies and portions of your psyche. In essence, you're activating energy. That's what this is. That energy transitions to you unlocking them in your psyche where you manifest them, whether it's an external experience, whatever it may be. But that's how the process works. So there's definitely a connection with that. Yeah, I mean, the mythos is interesting. It's good to know it. That's why I say don't get caught up. Like I was saying, even with some of the stuff I was reading earlier from the Chants of Belial book, I don't get caught up in a lot of that stuff too. So yeah, it's good to, the mythology and the mythos is only good if you can't get caught up in it literally, because that's where people get confused. And then if you're talking to somebody not learned, that's where unnecessary debate can come in. The mythos you should be able to decipher that and how you can apply it to yourself. The mythos and the mythology can be very powerful if you can use it as a magical tool and how it applies to you, not trying to convince others and the authenticity of it, because that's where you're going to get yourself stuck like Chuck. You don't want to do that. Definitely. What else we got here? Yeah, the frequency thing, something here that caught my attention. Hold on. Where is it? Damn. Hold on, this thing scared people. I totally lost my spot. Holy shit. Okay, here we go. Matter of fact, the brother that you see in here, he ain't going to tell you, but I know because we know each other personally. The brother you see in the chat, he might have mentioned it before in the past. Mandela Bourne was part of the group Jurassic 5 out of the West Coast of Cali. You guys, if you're a hip hop head, you know who Jurassic 5 is. He don't talk about it, but that's the brother you see in the chat. He's in there. I think he's in here now still. He goes by the name of Mandela Bourne. He was connected to that group. Jurassic 5, they put out some good stuff. That was during that time. So some of my favorite groups from that era on the West Coast, Love the Hieroglyphics crew, Soul Mischief, Casual, Alcoholics crew, Exhibit, Jurassic 5, Faricide. Those were some of the West Coast groups that I was into because I thought they had a lot of lyrical skill, just in my opinion. I wasn't big into the whole gangster rap thing. Wasn't a huge Dr. Dre, Snoop, and all that. I mean, I respect it, but it just wasn't my thing. But those were the West Coast groups that I liked. Faricide. I love Souls of Mischief. I think they were the best crew that came out of the West Coast. Casual. I always liked Casual's music. Exhibit. Was always big on Exhibits for his first couple albums, especially. The Alcoholics crew. They were good. They were a whole part of that Exhibit. But some of those guys were if I was pumping some West Coast music, that's what I was pumping. They were some of my favorite groups from that era. But that Hieroglyphics crew, check that whole crew out. That 93 to Infinity album, that's a classic. Classic. One of the best West Coast, in my opinion, groups that ever came out. What else we got? Yeah, the fireworks. I'm just scanning through some of the comments. Yeah, you just sit outside. It was a show, man. The block parties, man. 4th of July block parties, yeah. Yeah, Patrick, we are one of the last generations. That stuff is gone. Maybe, who knows? Yeah, maybe it makes a comeback on some level. Maybe that's just wishful thinking. I don't know. House parties, that's what we did. Mystic Moons brings up another good point. House parties was big. I mean, yeah, we did clubs here and there. We more see back then. A lot of the roller skating rinks they played music. We used to go to the roller skating rinks to break dance or just dance and hang out. Not everybody skated. That was a hangout spot. Yeah, we did the clubs, but the clubs came later. The clubs started to become big in my era in the mid to late 90s, more so towards the late 90s. But prior to that, in the summertime, it was backyard parties. And in the wintertime, it was basement parties or house parties. We mostly basements. It's what we did in the winter. Like I said, we bring the big boom box. If we didn't have the DJ, we just put the boom box on a stand or a table, play the Rap Attack, get us a couple cases of beer or a keg. Those who smoked, and we just did our thing. We just danced, socialized, talked. And I grew up in a tight neighborhood. We didn't really have too much beef, only when we went to other neighborhoods. But we all pretty much got along and looked out for each other. But back then you could throw hands and that was it. You didn't have to worry about people coming back shooting you, and we did that. So we settled our problems with our hands and it was a done deal. Now you could beat somebody up with their hands, somebody coming back with a gun or they're coming back with 10 other motherfuckers to kill you. That's how we settled it. Back then you threw hands and that was it. It was done. And sometimes you were best friends after you threw hands. It was a respect thing. But yeah, man, the house parties and basement parties, that was a big thing back then. We did that more so in the 80s and early 90s. That was our main form of socializing. That was big back then. I miss that. That was big. That's what we did. I never forget. That's what I'm saying. It was the whole experience. We couldn't wait for the weekend to come. We used to go to this spot called Shoppers Village. I'm going to Shoppers Village or Jamaica Ave. I'm going down to the Coliseum, see if I can get me a new pair of kicks. I'm going down to the Coliseum in Jamaica Ave, see if I can get me a three-fingered ring. Remember the three-finger rings with your name on it? Or the name plates? Remember the name plates and the three-finger rings? Remember the goddamn Goose Downs, the Gazelles, the Raccoon Hats, the Sheepskins? Yeah, but then when Run DMC came out with that Raising Hell album, when they came out with them damn Goose Down jackets, everybody wanted one. I told you, man. I got my first Panther collar, black. I can smell that thing now. Those things used to smell so good, man. The collar on you, and then you put some cologne on, and you can smell. Oh man, forget it. The jacket was $180 back in 1986. That was a lot of money. I remember I got my Goose Down on Jamaica Avenue inside the Coliseum. The Coliseum, for those that don't know, in Jamaica and Queens, it's still there. It's not as big as it used to be, but it's right by the bus terminal when you come out of the Jamaica bus terminal. It's a big indoor 2-level shopping. It's like a big flea market mall for those that know. Oh yeah, the Dookie rope chains. Can't forget the Dookie rope chains and the bango earrings. I used to love the women that used to wear bango earrings with their names on. Oh man, that shit used to be fly. See, I said the word fly. We don't even say that word no more. Fly, dope, fresh. Remember that? We're dating ourselves. But it was that whole experience, the weekend come, getting on the bus or the subway, going down to Jamaica Avenue, buying you some gear for the weekend. I used to be into, and I don't even know if they make them no more, Saucony shoes. You remember Saucony sneakers? Those were some of the flyest sneakers. I don't even know if they make them no more. Remember British Knights? Now I'm really going throwback. Remember BKs? British Knights. Troop sneakers. Remember Troop? Feline. Obviously Adidas. Remember straight-legged Lees with the crease on the side? Had to have the crease on the side. Remember Wranglers? Man, all those things, man. La Tigre. Who remembers the La Tigre shirts with the little alligators on them? Man, we used to wear the straight lead jeans with the La Tigre shirts. Oh, shit. Couldn't tell nobody nothing, man. He was crisp. Mm-hmm. It's okay, buddy. You don't have to duck. But yeah, man. Fun stuff. Good stuff. All right, what else we got? Yeah, Giuliani's a hypocrite. Dan Gibbs, you're welcome. Thanks for tuning in. TDK, Eddie, you're right. That TDK was one of the best blank tapes you could buy, whether it was VHS or cassette. Remember the 6-hour VHS tapes? You try to get 3 movies on one VHS tape. Remember that shit? Used to remember had what was it, SP, LP, and EP on? I think it was on the VCR settings. And little guy. And you used to try to get 3 movies, and you have to look make sure they're not. Each movie ain't more than 2 hours. John, close the door. You had to make sure each movie wasn't more than 2 hours, so you could fit 3 on one VHS tape. That shit is hilarious. But yeah, man, it's fun times, man. Different era, man. I didn't think you could find those blanks anymore. I still got all my demos and music, even the music that we did. Remember the DATs? I don't even know if they still use DATs in recording studios. I still have some of my original music that we recorded on DATs and cassette. But the DAT was like, if those that record know what I'm talking about. I've been out of the loop for so many years. I don't even know if there's such a thing anymore that's called a DAT. But I still have the music on the DAT with the original tracks before it was transferred. I held on to all that shit. Plus, with my boy committing suicide and passing on, it has more personal value to me now, obviously. But yeah, anyway. What else we got? I didn't even know that. You just schooled me about something on TDK. I didn't even know that. That's interesting. Damien, that's interesting. Yeah, the freestyle demos, man. That used to be fun, just taking a break beat. That used to be some fun shit, man. Yeah, the 1200 techniques. Yeah, that's real. That's real DJing. Real DJ turntables, not some fucking computer. Yeah, we should, Damon. We get at me. Maybe we should start dealing with like hip hop culture and stuff from that era. We could even incorporate pop culture, movies. That would be something cool to do. That would be something cool. Definitely, maybe we could start something separate with that. Just focus on that. Would be some fun stuff. Hold on, that comment was. Hold on, damn. Give me a minute. Okay, I got it. There's a long name. Epistemologist L or Diffractor, the venerable one. Oh man, you have me reminiscing like shit right now, Dan. Missed them days. Just a thought. Would you do a show on hip hop and occult? Yeah, I did a few in these archives here. You'll see it, but maybe me and Damien, because I know Damien deals with music. That'd be something interesting. That's something. Put some ideas together and run it by me. Maybe we could start something separate. That maybe do like a once a month or something thing. Put some good shit together. Maybe. I know playing some content is rough with all the copyright shit, but I think Instagram, you get a little more leadway. But Instagram don't archive videos. They only stay up in your story for 24 hours, then they go. That's the only thing that sucks about Instagram. What do you say? Oh, so Doom, you remember? Yeah, Doom, I know you remember Rap Sheet because you go back during them times. Yeah, Rap Sheet was the newspaper. Again, they were at that time. I mean, the Source obviously stood the test of time, But the Rap Sheet was the one running side by side with the Source for a while. They were the two publications competing. And in the summer of '93, we got in the Rap Sheet under that name. They gave us a good review on it. Again, it was a section called Unside Hype. I'll pull it out next time. I'll show you. I'll put it up on the screen. So I saved that. But yeah, the Rap Sheet brings back a lot of memories, man. Ichigo's and Mikey says, I just found a fat box of tapes. See, that's another word we should say back in the day. Fat. That shit is fat. Old Wu-Tang. Oh, man, Wu-Tang changed the game when it came to crews. That first Enter the 36 Chambers album is classic. Classic. I don't know if anything. That probably might be possibly the most classic crew album that ever came out. And they one of the few groups. Look what they were able to branch out individually and all the success they got individually, collectively, and how they're still around and stand the test of time. And then some of them obviously became bigger than others, but yeah, definitely. And a lot of people don't know Meth is originally from Long Island. He moved to Staten Island after the fact. He was born and raised in Long Island. And sometimes you would see Method Man out at, one time I seen him at the Hempstead bus terminal in Nassau County. I saw X-Clan out there one time. I actually talked to Professor X. Brother Jay, what most people don't know, he dated a white woman. And most people didn't know that, but not like that. Now that really matters. But back then it was pretty fucked up because you were talking all that pro-black conscious shit and you had a white woman on you. Anyway, but yeah, I ran into X-Clan out there a few times. Another group who I actually when I was affiliated with the Ansars at the time, who you guys might know, he goes by the name of, now he's using a different name. Damn, I'm trying to think of his name. There was Tragedy, who also went by the name of Intelligent Hoodlum. And then there was, let me see what name he's going by now. I can't think of his name. Hold on, I'll tell you right now, because he's changed his name a couple of times. And they were actually from Long Beach. They were also Ansars at the time. Hold on. I get you their name. KMD. The one MC from KMD, he's still around. There's actually a video they filmed on Bushwick Avenue that we were there. Peach Fuzz was the name of the track. Doom, MF Doom, he's going by now. He does some really abstract hip hop, if you're familiar with MF Doom, but he used to be a part of KMD. When Sambo passed away, Sambo was part of that KMD group. He tragically died, and he got hit by a car, I believe it was. And actually, they're the ones that put Third Base on, which a lot of people don't realize. If you remember in the Gas Face, you see MF Doom and KMD, they're in the Gas Face video. But Search and Pete Nice, yeah, there you go. MF Doom, right. They were the ones that got actually put on. But if you look in that video, he's in that video. But Peach Fuzz, actually, the guy in the beginning of the video of Peach Fuzz that says, if you pull up the Peach Fuzz video, his name is Yassar, and he comes in the beginning of the video. He says, "Oh, and no talking to the girls," and he's dressed in Ansar, all white Ansar. That's actually the guy who gave me my Shahada when I became an Ansar. He used to run the bookstore back then in New York. There was a bookstore on 179th and Parsons in Jamaica, Queens. It was a Nubian Islamic Hebrew bookstore. The guy you see in the beginning of that video, his name is Yassar. There was his other partner, his name was Bushar. And they both ran the bookstore. That's who first introduced me to that knowledge at the time. And he was actually the guy you see in that video in the beginning that says, "Don't talk to the girls." He was the guy that gave me my Muslim Shahada at the time. And his name is Yassar. He's in the very beginning of that video. So, yeah, that video brings back memories. But MF Doom went into that, what some would call that abstract place, because Sambo was his little brother. He never got, I don't think he ever recovered from that. Sambo's the one you see in KMD. He's a short, dark-skinned brother, and he had like the twists. He passed away. That's the guy I'm talking about. MF Doom, he never recovered from that. That's what a lot of people say. Who knows? All right, what else we got here? Some good stuff today. Good stuff. 4080 Murder Dog. Oh shit. Tell you, remember that goddamn St. Ives and all that malt liquor shit? Man, all that shit. Yeah, Damien, I do. We gotta run that by you. But everything I got is on cassette. I got about 3 cassettes. One with studio recorded stuff. Some of the stuff we were gonna do on the album, I still got it. I got some solo joints that I did all on cassette, and then I have some on DAT, on the original DAT disc. It's not DAT. It looks like a tape. It's like a little square black thing. Again, I don't even know if that stuff exists anymore. I don't even know what machine you would play that on if they still have a machine that can play that stuff. But I got there's one tape that's very personal to me. It was the last tape. My partner, me and him made up the group. It was just me and him in the group. We had dances. Remember back then, everybody had to have a DJ and dances, of course. So it was me and him were the 2 MCs. We had a DJ. Chris, he's not around no more. I don't even know what happened to him. We completely lost touch. And then we went through a different series of dances. Matter of fact, 2 of our first dances were part of KMD. The 2 guys you see in a couple of their videos, they actually danced for us at some shows at RPBC that we did back in the day. So because those dances you see in some of those KMD's first album and first videos, they were dancing for a few groups at that time on Long Island, Queens, or Brooklyn. Because at that time, dances they were just trying to get into anything they can get, some type of shine. But we actually used, for some of our showcases, we used KMD's dances for some of our performances. And then we got on, oh man, it was a culture shock. My first taste of South Florida at the time down here. Then we connected with this dude named Benny. I can't remember his name. He had a label called Go For It Records. And we came down here. He had some new artists called JB Ski, and met some of you might be familiar with MC Shy D. He was originally from New York but moved to Atlanta, and then he got signed to Luke Skywalker Records. So I met some of the Miami-based groups. That was crazy because that was a culture shock to me. It was different, but that was what was big in Florida at the time. So we came down here and we did a few showcases down here because we had linked up with some work they were doing down here, and then there were some groups at that time. I guess they were relevant at the time. It was MC Zeus, KJ and the Fellas, MC Shy D, 2 Live Crew. Who else was it? JB Ski. I'm not even familiar with a lot of these artists. But that was some of the popular. The Miami Boys was another group, but they were doing what they called bass music. And we were on a few of those showcases, and it was rough because we were in these clubs down here in Florida back in the late 80s, early 90s, and it was a little different because we were the only group. We were doing basically New York, East Coast, and they were doing like Miami bass music is what they called it. So ran into a few of those cats. Anyway. So Eddie, you did some work with Cool G Rap and Wu-Tang. That's pretty cool. Pretty cool. Like I said, I love Cool G Rap. I like Raekwon too. Diamond Lex says, his first couple solo joints was off the chain. Yeah, Cool G Rap's. Let me tell you something. That first 2 Cool G Rap albums, I kind of lost fondness for Cool G Rap when he tried to go super gangster and he got into all that West Coast when he went out to the West Coast. And then last couple albums he put out, I wasn't feeling that. He's got a protege out now. He's doing, I forgot the dude's name. They just did something recently. I had to look it up. It was okay. I checked it out. But I didn't like when Cool G Rap, after probably Ill Street Blues, I didn't really listen to a lot of his shit. All right. So Eddie you go by the name of DJ Technique. Okay, I love Boot Camp Clip. Actually, Buckshot is an old Ansar. He used to live in the community. When he came out in '93 and Black Moon did that first album, Enter the Stage, that's kind of when he left and started pursuing hip hop. But yeah, I love that whole Boot Camp Clip. Smith and Wesson, Black Moon, all those guys. They put out some good shit. Actually, I believe it was a Buckshot, or it might have been Smith and Wesson. One of them just came out with a new album. It's on the Amazon app. I listened to it not too long ago. But now when you get into the era of the early to mid '90s, now you're talking about the boom bap era is what we called it. They all had a certain sound. Das Effects, Black Moon, etc. My son is big on it. My oldest son's big on that era. He just took a fondness for it. He loves the boom bap era. Cellar Dwellers was another group I ran across. Cellar Dwellers. I thought they were one of the most underrated groups at the time. Yeah, definitely heard of the Boot Camp Clique. They came out with some classics. What else we got? Rakim. Boot Camp Clique. K Solo, yeah. He was from Central Islip, Long Island. And Long Island was slept on, man. Long Island produced some of the best lyrical rappers, in my opinion. EPMD. Now remember, but a lot of people didn't know EPMD and Rakim had beef when they first came out, because there was rumor that Rakim had said that EPMD was biting off their style. I don't know how anybody can make up that rumor, because I don't think they really sound the same. I know at that time they had a laid back flow, but I don't really think Eric Sermon of Paris sounded like Rakim. I don't see it. But there was that rumor. They squashed it kind of. They said it wasn't really truth to it. And Public Enemy, I was a huge Public Enemy head, man. They were like my idols coming out, and they, coming out from not far from where I grew up. We looked up to that shit. You understand what I'm saying? We looked up to that. So there was a lot of good rappers that came out of Long Island. I think that went under the radar. They never really gave them the credit, even though they were popular. Yeah, Sean P is good. I mean, Sean P, he goes under the radar. I like a lot of Sean P's music. Or Sean Price. Spellbound, MOP. Yeah, I wasn't huge on MOP. I mean, they were hype, had that hyped up style. MOP, Onyx, when that type of rap, had its popularity in the the 90s. I mean, MOP's still around doing some stuff. They just came out with some new shit too. I heard them on, I can't remember why. They just came out with some new shit. I listened to it. I'm not going to say I was a huge MOP or Onyx head. Never was really big on that. Onyx, though, was, they brought a new style to the game, that hype, they hyped up shit. That was the thing. I wasn't huge on MOP. Listen to him. I mean, give him respect. Well, wasn't a huge MOP. You know who goes under the radar that was good during that time? He just came out in the last couple of years. He just came out with a new album this year and the year before that, OC. OC was on Wild Pitch back in the day. But OC's, man, check out his new stuff. The thing I think OC did that was unique is he still kept kind of the flavor from back then, but he has updated it and brought it up into this time. OC's album is off the chain. And if you didn't catch, and it's on KRS-One's website, whether you go to his Temple of Hip Hop or you just Google KRS-One, he just put out a joint not too long ago called Streetlight Part 1. And man, to me right now, that's the best album out, because I think he captured the sound of back then, but bring it up into modern day times. Check that out if you haven't. It's KRS-One, Streetlight Part 1. He's coming out with a second one. You can download it. If you Google it, you can download and get a free download of it. I think if you go to the site, you have to pay. Just Google it. And I think it's about 13 tracks. I've been cranking that lately too. Streetlight Part 1. He definitely captured that classic sound, but updated it. Yeah, we're gonna do that. Epistemologist or Dr. Frater, the Venable One. We're gonna do that hip hop and occult thing. I'm gonna get with Damien on that. So Damien, shoot me an email. Shoot me some ideas, days, times available. We'll put together something for that. I think that'd be cool. Yeah, Eddie, let's get you on too, because that's your field. Let's get you on, Eddie. Send me a link. All you guys that have a connection to it, definitely. Let's get you guys linked into that. Let's bring a whole nother flavor to this. So Eddie Machete and Damien, reach out to me. Maybe we could set up a I'm pretty much flexible for the time. Maybe we could set up a call first and discuss it. Get on a video call, or we could just use one of the platforms and then have a discussion and see what we can come up with. I think that'd be pretty cool. I think that would be pretty good. All right, what else we got? Getting ready to wind it down. We're almost there. Eddie Spaghetti. I think I heard that too. Yeah, that's the thing. I had a dude, one of my partners, Travis, was called MC Chaos. And that was way before we was into the occult. Nobody ever took my name. But one of the first samples that I ever used, nobody was using it. Didn't come out to. I used Barry White Deeper way back. I'm going back in the 80s. I still have the track. The one Run for Cover that Rakim used on his third album, that got the first album that got five mics in the source. I sampled that beat long before it was used on that Run for Cover beat. It's funny how a lot, and then I got some really good riffs off a gem off of Ike and Tina Turner album. I'll share that. We'll talk about that though. Oh, I remember YZ out of New Jersey. Shit, YZ was down with that whole. YZ was a 5%er. He was always beefing with some other crew out of Jersey. It was YZ. It was King Son. What was that? I'm drawing a blank. They were all part of that clique. They was all beefing though. The gods is taking heads. I could hear their voices. That was a crew out of Jersey that had that style like Das Effects. They were 5%ers too. Somebody typing in. I know you know who I'm talking about. God damn. Can't believe I'm drawing a blank. They were all 5%ers. They were out of Jersey. They were from that same area of YZ. They were down with King Son. They did a lot of tracks with King Son, Righteous But Ruthless. They were on his first album. King Son was from New York, but he was 5% too. God damn. How can I not remember their fucking name? Somebody I know got to type that shit in. Poor Righteous Teachers. Thank you. PRT. Couldn't think of it. Beat Nuts. I saw somebody type in Beat Nuts. They want some next shit. Beat Nuts was the East Coast version of the Alcoholics crew. But Beat Nuts did some classic. Intoxicated Demons. If you ain't never heard of production that was ahead of its time, hold on. Intoxicated Demons by Beat Nuts. Check that album out if you haven't. Another group, in my opinion, I've mentioned this, I think, briefly in the past, that was so underrated and was way ahead of their time as far as production and lyric. When you listen to some of their tracks, the album was a Critical Beatdown. Check that out. Listen. Cool Keith, Ultramatic MCs, their first two albums, but the first album, Critical Beatdown. Mind you, that album came out in 1988. Their style, their beats, and their production, they was on some next shit. They was on some totally next shit. They did a remastered version of that came out a few years ago, off the chain. If you never heard of Ultramagnetic MCs, Cool Keith did some solo joints too after he left Ultramagnetic. He actually got into the porno business, became a porn star, and then came back out of that and went back into rap. That's a whole nother story. But Ultramagnetic MCs, Critical Beatdown. If you're really a hip hop head and you really want to listen to a classic album, and I think they always went under the radar. They were different. Their style was different, and the shit that they was rapping about was considered kind of abstract and bizarre. But I used to love their production was off the chain. They always had that deep SP1200 bass in all their tracks. They were big on thumping that bass. They were heavy on the drums and the bass. Real heavy, though. Yeah, Planet Asia is good. I've listened to some of his stuff. He drops some good stuff. If you're looking for someone Apollo Brown puts out some good stuff. Yeah, there's some good stuff out there. Most of it is not mainstream. Yeah, Griselda, Freddie Gibbs. I know everybody likes Rock Marciano. I'm not really big on Rock Marciano. I know a lot of people love that. But yeah, I mean, some of his stuff is good. Okay, so you know what a DAT is. Okay, I thought I was outdated myself. I have a DAT, so whatever it can be transferred to. But I have most of it also on cassette. But I have a lot of just tracks on DATs. There are no vocals on them. They were a lot of the tracks, or a lot of the tracks that we had used. A lot of it's stuff that we didn't even use. But yeah, we definitely got to build on that. Yeah, Two Live Crew was big in Florida, man. When that bass music thing was popping off. Yeah, I like YZ, man. YZ was he was another one that went underrated. And he's the one that sampled that popular Bad Boy beat before anybody used it. Dun, 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 that piano riff. He was one of the first ones to use that track. People don't know, man. A lot of these tracks, a lot of shit you hear today, just yeah. But anyway, yeah, Strictly Business, classic. The first two EP&D albums, classics. Production off the chain. See, I like that mid-tempo, mid-beat shit, that grimy. That's just the shit I like. I wasn't into that super fast shit. I wanted to hear that shit thump. I like that mid EP&D, Rakim. They had that mid-tempo shit that thumped. But still, the God MC, ain't nobody better than him. I don't care. I'll argue that point to death. Yeah, email me and we will link up on that. Freddie Fox. Freddie Fox is from Long Island too. Forgot about Freddie Fox. Yeah, and he was down with Group Home. He was down with Gangstar. He was part of that whole Group Home clique. Wasn't huge. I like Big Shug. To me, Big Shug, Little Dap, Big Shug, they were probably my two favorite rappers in that group. Wasn't a huge Freddie Fox fan though, but Freddie Fox is from Long Island too. Forgot about Freddie. He put Long Island on the map too. Yeah, The Shining by BCC. That's another classic album. Who remembers Tower Records in Manhattan? Remember Tower Records? Oh shit! Remember going to Tower Records? But my record shop I used to go was right across the street from the Coliseum on Jamaica Avenue. There was a record shop that was there for years. I used to get my Public Enemy gear there. I got my Public Enemy patch, with the brother with the hat and the bullseye of the rifle. I actually got I wore the Flavor clock for a while. I was ahead. Had the Flav clock. What time is it? I had all the PE t-shirts from I was a PE head, man. You couldn't tell me nothing. PE bring out the aggressiveness in me. You couldn't tell me shit, boy. And I remember my friend, never forget this. My friend Brian was the first to get his driver's, like him and George. But Brian had a 1982 Cadillac Coupe de Ville. You know how big those things are? He had a tape deck in it, and we used to be in the wintertime, freezing our ass off, windows down, cranking that second Public Enemy album. It Takes a Nation of Millions to hold us back. We'd be cruising. I could see it now, going up Hempstead Avenue to the White Castle, freezing in the wintertime, windows down, just so we cranking out PE, man. Leather Goose bombers on. Shit, you couldn't tell us shit. And he had a white leather top, white 82 Cadillac Coupe de Ville, all white, and he had the vinyl top, not leather. They called it vinyl top. Two-door. That thing was a boat. Then my boy George got a 1977 Grand Torino, the Starsky and Hutch looking Grand Torino. Two-door, big as hell. They were the first two to get driver's licenses. You know what the first car I drove? A 1977 Buick Regal, four-door. That shit looked like an airplane. Google it. And you driving a big-ass car like that in New York in the tight-ass streets, Google. If you want to see a big-ass car, Google a 1977 Buick Regal, four-door. The thing looked like a goddamn airplane. That's how big that motherfucker was. That was the first shit that I drove. Yeah, MC Shy-D. Yeah. All right, what else we got here? Oh, Slick Rick. Yeah, I love Slick Rick. First couple albums. All right, thank you. Yeah, I'm about to wrap it up. You hungry? Yeah. All right, the minions are hungry, people. You so full of shit. You're so full of it. All right, I think we are at the end. This has been fun talking about all right, I'm gonna have to wrap it up, people. Sorry. This was fun. But yeah, you Damien and Eddie Machete, or anybody else that has experience in that area wants to do something on this, shoot me an email. And then I'll copy your emails and I'll send a timeout where I can send you a private video call and we could set something up to do that. I think that'd be pretty cool. And we'll just focus on that. We'll kind of just have fun with it. All right. Anyway, I appreciate everybody tuning in. You know where to reach me at. see the email in the description box of the videos. Shoot me an email, or anything that I talked about, readings, consultations, classes. Don't forget to check out the Patreon channel. Definitely check that out. I don't think you'll be disappointed. For those that are Patreon members, I'll see you tomorrow at 2:30. We have that Holy Death Ritual. I've already posted for the May events. Got something already planned for June. So definitely check out the content on there. And for those that are there, I'll see you guys tomorrow that are on the Patreon. And I'll probably see the rest of you guys sometimes next week. All right. Infernal blessings. We'll talk.
Finally.